Welcome into a Tuesday night evening blend number 40. 40 weeks in a row, save for 1 week of pre recorded content. I am here joined by the lovely, talented, magical, and mysterious, and a little bit disappointed Matthew Matson. We'll get into it later on, folks, if you hang around for our Daredevil Born Again episode 1 of 2 that is released this evening. We ran it right up to the last minute. We had a little special guest hanging out. I won't tell you who that was, just for save that for maybe down the line as we get maybe to the midway point of this season. I'd like to maybe bring him in and talk about it because Matthew, as I was just telling you, that I'm not a huge lore guy with Daredevil. I have told people I have the Child's Play graphic novel. I've told people that, I have a few comics here and there with Daredevil in them, but I was not a big Daredevil fan. I wasn't a big Daredevil guy until I started watching the Netflix series from 2015. And I got to tell you, holy crap. I finished up season 3 today, raced through it like a madman overnight into today. I've had a hell of a day, to say the least, starting with this
tires.
morning. And a flat tire on my way to work caused me to be 25 minutes late to work. Thank God for AAA, not going to lie. They did come through in a timely manner. But nonetheless, here we are, another Tuesday night, you and me hanging out, and we just kind of watched the first episode of Daredevil Born Again on Disney+.
Yeah. Yep.
Woo, man. All right. Well, we'll get into it in a little while. We do have a few things to bring up before. If it's okay with you, Matthew, when we get into the Daredevil topic, I did want to do somewhat of a comprehensive review of seasons 1 through 3. Just to give those, look, the show started 10 years ago. If you hadn't watched it by now, I'm sorry, right? Spoiler alert. There are some things we'll be talking about as we lead up to this first episode of Born Again. But we do have some other news. We do have some Oscar winners and losers and a few other cherry pick stories that I grabbed. That I want to get your comments on, but nonetheless, we usually started out just saying, "Hey, how you doing? How was your day today?" And I always like to touch base with you, buddy. So how's everything going?
Yeah, it was kind of a crazy day. We had tornado scale winds last night and
Us too.
early this morning. But it passed through a lot faster than it was expected. So everything was pretty smooth for the most part, but there was a lot of damage out there. By the time I got on the road, I delayed my exit to go to work a little bit, but I got there on time, and
okay.
Everybody's safe except for my dogs are freaking the heck out about everything. So
yeah, yeah. The doggos, animals in general, just not fans of this kind of weather. And we also have had just high winds all day long, wreaked havoc at my bar today on our patio. We have those big plastic things that roll down, have a big long bar at the bottom of them for weight. And then as you roll them up, you tie them off, and that kind of gives you either a closed off patio or an open patio. And right now it's been closed off because the weather's up, down, up, down. But those things were flying and banging against the wood of the patio and the fencing. And so I did my best to bungee those off. But that's after the flat tire incident that happened today. Folks, in Nashville, Tennessee, just be careful. If you ever drive through my city, you will learn that there are potholes that have not been fixed in about 8 years, probably longer than that. And the ones they do fix don't last very long. So just be prepared to possibly get a flat tire and a damaged rim if you come through my city. Love people coming through my city. Don't need as many people moving here at this point. It's gotten quite overcrowded. But nonetheless, obviously it's Tuesday night, evening blend. Really appreciate Punk plugging the show last night. and giving us that opportunity, and telling people about it. It sometimes does bring in new people, and I really do appreciate that. I'm sure you do as well.
Yep.
And you guys do a lot of great work together. And that was a great stream last night. Long stream,
That was fun.
very long stream.
Yeah,
But
he just kept going and
ooh,
going.
man. I mean, sometimes it's like that with the news. I mean, when you do that work, when you're in the
Yeah.
toy sphere and you're talking
Wow.
about new drops and new
I,
stuff, pre-orders and all that, it can
I
take a
I
while.
I don't know exactly what he was thinking, but he had a different idea of what he wanted to do yesterday, and then he realized ZoloCon and Toy Fair are going to take up everything, and I'm like, yeah, dude, yeah, I
Yeah.
kept sending you stuff all day.
Yeah, and we're starting to, we're gonna get into that season. I know I'm going to Joe Fest, you're going to DFW. We'll have reports from that, have some videos from that as well for you guys, and maybe one of those nights. I don't know how it all works out. We'll see. Not promising anything, but maybe you and I can do a little quick live stream from
Yeah,
each place,
yeah,
and say, hey, this is what's going on here. This is what's going on where I'm at, and that would be kind of fun for
yeah.
viewers. But here we are on a Tuesday night, the premiere of Daredevil: Born Again on Disney Plus.
Again,
This is not necessarily a season 4, but we'll get into that just to prep everybody. But it did happen tonight, and we watched it right up until the moment we had to go live. We,
yep,
we it's like, hey, look, like we're pushing it. But you knew that, I knew that, and we appreciate anybody that's sticking around and hanging out with us for that, maybe a little bit late. I do want to go ahead and at least get into the chat and just see who all's here as people kind of roll in. Let me hit the little ticker there. Everybody loves a good ticker, don't they? I love a good tickler myself, but that's a whole different ball game. But anyway, so yes, no, not box office chat, folks. That's what we're talking about. First in the door, love him. Menjoza is here, man. What's up to you, my friend? GI Jet Man is here as well.
uh,
Same time, Toy Shane. What's up? Gonna watch Daredevil Thursday, or gonna watch Thursday after I watch Daredevil. I get it. I will tell you, we're not going to be spoiling any major plot points. There is probably only one
yeah,
major plot point that we know of from tonight's episode, and that's about it.
yeah.
Yeah. Only really one. Joe Fan 84 is here always, and love to see him here as well. War chest full of toys. I'm back. Yes, you are. Yeah, always a pleasure. 3-star draw is also in the house. I want to make sure I hit up his first one so I don't get one of those weird, hey, what's up, so and so? Yeah, just finished episode 1, and I'd love to get your thoughts on
Oof,
episode 1,
yeah.
3-star.
I was
I think,
curious. Yeah,
interesting. I can't
yeah.
wait. I can't wait to talk to you about it. Daredevil Dave. Got plans with my kids and I just want to stop by and say, hey, well, look, I really appreciate it. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. And thank you for at least dropping by. And hey, by all means, got plans with the kids, keep those plans always. Turk Murphy's Toy Solutions is here. What's up? What's up to you?
Well,
So far so good right now, and as we go on, I'm sure we'll add a little bit here and there and whatever. But at least want to recognize the chat and those that have dropped in to start off with us right off the bat. So, you know, we always start out with the current box office. That's what we do. It's part of what we do here. So we're going to do that. It's just part of the game, right? And we like to play the game. So let me go ahead and bring that up and
we talked about the theater in Seattle last week, didn't we? Did we talk about
we
that?
so I talked about it,
Okay. Yeah.
but you are more than welcome to
Well,
talk
I
about it
mean,
here.
I just think I think it's interesting. A roof collapses in a theater in Seattle. How many hurt? They were playing Captain America 4, so no one was hurt because there were 2 people in there. I mean that just writes itself, right? I mean, my God.
Well, it tells you everything you need to
Yeah.
know, and if we look at the numbers, it tells you everything.
Yeah.
Let's see here. We'll do it just like that. So, as we look at the numbers, I love watching Daredevil and finishing off season 3. one through three, there are these same 10 commercials in rotation. And one of those is an ad for Captain America Brave New World in IMAX. It's a very short commercial, maybe 10
Yep.
seconds. The other one is a Topgolf commercial for Captain America, where you yourself can play as Captain America. Well, not really, but you can play a game that allows you to score points as you hit the clubs. And I love it because they show like Granny at Top Golf. Look, the only people I've ever seen at Top Golf, folks, is actual golfers who are there to drink beer and crush some balls. And not necessarily in that order, and not necessarily know exactly what I mean by that. But Captain America Brave New World is still number one, and that's what I was going to mention. One of the commercials brings that up. The number one movie for 2 weeks in a row, and it's like, well, okay, because there's nothing
else
out.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it doesn't mention the almost 70% drop from week 1 to week 2. But nonetheless, as we look here, total gross, Matthew, I honestly, this is shocking to me. I would have thought this movie would have gone over the 200 million mark. It's not going to make its money back, but at least, I don't know how you feel about this, would have at least made a couple $100 million. But it's sitting at 164, 579. To me, that's shocking after 18 days.
Yeah, man, it's not going anywhere. It is cooked. It's done.
$272 per theater out of 3,800 theaters.
Even if you
That's
believe
wild.
$187 million was the cost to make that movie, which it wasn't. That was the cost of the reshoots. They haven't even made that back, much less the theaters. They're not even paying the theaters. Or I mean, because you got to think that 40% of that goes back to the theaters. And
Oh, 100%. Yeah, right. Exactly.
oh man,
Yeah, they get their cut. This is bad news. And
this is bad.
look, and I'm not gonna tell. I had a good compliment earlier today at work because a guy that is not in what we talk about. He doesn't. He did, however, back the Rattler
Ooh,
based off of my recommendation. He's not a toy collector. This
huh.
is a 60-year-old man, a good friend of mine, awesome person. That's his favorite airplane of all time. When I
Okay.
showed him the HasLab,
Yeah.
he backed it. Not because he's a G.I. Joe fan, not because he loves toys. He has no toys. He backed it because of my recommendation and
Hmm.
how I said, look, dude, if that's your favorite plane, this thing is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And I showed him
It's
all the pictures.
But I mean, it's a reduced scale from an actual A10, though.
Of
So
course.
yeah.
But he's not that kind of
Okay.
person where it's like,
Okay.
oh
Okay.
God, it's got to be. No. It's just based off of my recommendation. So
Wow.
that was kind of the point.
So you,
And
you
so
conned an old man into wasting his money on a
I
toy.
caught an old man into wasting his money on toys. This is an older man who has plenty of money and ain't worried about it.
Okay.
But also, my point being is that the compliment he paid to me was that I recommend Penguin to him.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
said, I don't care if you care about superheroes. I don't care if you care
Yeah.
about DC or Marvel or whatever. You need to watch this show because it's that good. And
Yeah.
so he did. And he was like, oh my God. He's like,
Yep.
that was amazing. So, of course, I've been recommending to him Daredevil, right?
Yeah.
Season 1, season 2, season 3. Season 1 being, I think, overall the best. I think
Oh,
season
yeah.
2 really holds up. Season 3 has some power level issues,
Yeah.
in my opinion. But and we'll get into that. But nonetheless, though, off of my recommendation, and that made me feel good because I'm not going to steer anybody wrong. You like what you like. If you
Yep.
like Captain America: Brave New World, more power to you. Punk liked it, you know.
Yep.
But I'm here to tell you, as someone who, really watches these things and critiques them, it's not a good movie overall. But if it floats your boat, great. But if you actually break it down, you're probably going to find some issues with it. So that's why it's failing so badly. The Monkey, however, at number 2, from 3 to 2, pulling in 25 million. It's probably a small budget, but doing pretty well. 3-star draw. Really wanted me and my son to go sit with him this past weekend, but my son was really not into it at all.
Yeah.
And so we may have to just take a rain check on that, or I will have to take a rain check. A rain check. Last Breath, Paddington in Peru, Dogman again, the Captain Underpants, thing.
Yep.
Mufasa, the Lion King, still hanging on, and after 74 days, has still made more money than Captain America.
3-star. I challenge you to these other people that you say who've seen the movie,
Man,
who say that they like it. Ask them what they like about it. Get them to talk about it, because every single person that has said,
why?
"Yeah, I went with my family and we enjoyed it," then we start talking about it, and he's like, "Well, yeah, but that whole thing with Isaac and his transformation from the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie, becoming younger and acting totally different, that was kind of confusing. Also, weren't the Avengers still around? I mean, when people actually relate it back to the movies that they've seen before, they say none of this makes sense." And so they may have enjoyed it in the moment, but the longer it sits, the more they're like, that doesn't make any sense.
And I think, look, again, not everybody dissects and looks at
Well,
this
and,
stuff.
and and I'm not saying they have to, but if you ask
Right,
them what they
right.
liked about it, they probably can't really tell you,
No, 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 no.
because it's just they went to see it and it was what it was. But if they think about it for 2 seconds, they're not going to like it anymore.
I do agree with you. I think overall it's one of those things. It's like, well, yeah, it had action. Okay, well, okay, cool. He was flying. Okay, all right. It had a Red Hulk. Oh, cool. All right. But like, why any of that, right?
Right.
Like, and so, but again, like I said, hey, people like what they like. That's
Nope.
fine.
Nope.
But I also will, recommend and say things. And so today I'm not saying made me feel good. My
Yeah.
point being is that, hey, man, like this is something you really need to spend your time on.
Yeah.
I would not tell someone, no matter how much they like Sam Wilson, Falcon, Captain Falcon, whatever. I would not ever tell them, hey, you really got to go spend your money at the theater to see this movie.
Yep.
But I would damn sure tell them you need to spend several hours of your life watching The Penguin or Daredevil season 1, right? Or 2. So that's all I'm saying. That's kind of my point about that. But yeah, rounding out the top 10, The Unbreakable Boy, that to me, kind of new, Hard Eyes. Honora probably got a bump from the Oscars, which we'll talk about. One of Them Days, which is still, again, that comedy with SZA. And sounds so goofy saying, A Complete Unknown, Becoming Led Zeppelin,
I want to see both of those still.
I do. I agree with you. A Complete Unknown, obviously, with the Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan. I get it. And
3-star. I got to say, it depends. I mean, maybe. A lot of people like Multiverse of Madness. Less people find things that they like about this movie. I don't know if that's just time, if that's just maturation, whatever. But the Multiverse of Madness was not Doctor Strange's movie, and there was a lot of hate put in there. And I think the Falcon Winter Soldier story had a lot of hate in it, and this movie carries some of that forward a little bit.
yeah,
But it's also less offensive than some of the other movies, I guess you could say. There's a lot less of the nonsense because they reshot it 3 times or whatever to try and get the audience score back up. So audiences are going to like it a little bit better.
yeah. I agree, Joe. Fan. I hate to hear that. Matthew's probably the person you need to message on Instagram that could probably give you some
I'll
good
tell
pointers
you
on that.
Yeah, lay it on the floor. Awesome. But put your feet up on the couch. Have your knees bent at 90-90 if you're laying on the floor.
Yes.
That should be helpful.
It does make a difference and makes a difference for me, even in the bed, right? Even laying in the bed.
If you can get those knees up, it really helps your back kind of relax and calm down.
War Chest Full of Toys, definitely bouncing off of something that I've made a comment about with the watching stuff on Disney Plus. Yes, Monster Hunters World or Wild and Chick-fil-A commercials, and it's like the same 10 damn commercials. I did want to recognize a couple of the people dropping in here, but go ahead, you read that one, and I'll look
Yeah,
for a couple of
GI
them.
Jetman. Haven't seen it yet. Should I see it? I love the MCU. If you love the MCU, then I say no, because everything in Phase 4, Phase Bore, and beyond is generally not good. I mean, I like the Spider-Man movie, and I think and Werewolf by Night. I actually like that, and the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special. I like that.
That was pretty
That's about
good.
it.
I agree
That's
with you.
about
That Christmas special was pretty good. I have to
it
agree.
was fun. It was stupid.
Yeah.
It's whatever. It was what it was supposed to be, and I enjoyed it. And I love that Kevin Bacon's band got to
Look,
be a part of it
yes.
and all that kind
Look,
of stuff.
wear
So,
the movie, wear it on your sleeve, and it does
yep.
that. And I'm okay with that. Viper
Hmm.
Scout in the house. What's going on? Love to see you here. War Chest also says the largest movie in IMAX, which in of itself
Oh
is
yeah,
rather funny as a
that's
commercial,
another
right?
classification there.
Yeah. Johnny Reno, not yet, not yet, not yet. We're just getting into it, and we're gonna, get into some of these stories, and then really spend probably the back half on Daredevil. Really is kind of the idea.
Viper Scout. The first half of One Division I liked. The last half of One Division was garbage.
I
When you
agree.
realized that the writers didn't know what the hell they were doing, and they didn't make it Mephisto because they didn't know who Mephisto was, and they also had an opportunity to bring the Fox X-Men into this universe, and they played it off as a joke. And that pissed me off more than anything, because it could have been something really cool and special, and they
Right.
blew it. And what they did with Monica Rambeau is terrible, because she should have been the first Captain Marvel. She was a much better Captain Marvel than Carol Danvers ever was. But
Yes. No. I agree with that.
yeah,
And
Werewolf
I
by Night
think too.
was good.
Yeah, and I wanted to pop that up, and also G.I. Jetman says,
Oh, yep.
no, you're good, you're good, you're
Ah,
good, you're good, you're good, you're good. It's okay, man. Look, if there's anybody I want stepping on my toes, it's you, buddy. All right,
we keep clicking
seriously.
the same comment, GI
I know
Jetman.
we do.
Uh,
Yeah, loved Hawkeye. What about you, Matthew? Did you love or did you like Hawkeye, or were there parts about Hawkeye that you liked and parts you didn't like?
I enjoyed Hawkeye because it's the only series where they didn't completely emasculate the man. Right? She
Isn't
actually
that
looked up.
interesting?
She looked up to him and
Yes.
used him as a mentor and admired him, and it made a good, compelling story to transition her into the role. And I thought that was a good progression, right up until they shot Kingpin in the face. And after
Yes.
that, I was like, this whole Echo chick is ridiculous, and they did a whole TV show on it, and the TV show was ridiculous, and they completely ruined Kingpin forever, and we'll talk about that in a little bit too. But it started in that show there, where they shot him in the face at the end of the series, and I was like, really, you blew it.
Yeah, it definitely for me kind of lost my vote at that moment. I did watch it. I thought it was okay. It wasn't my favorite, wasn't the worst. I thought it was fine.
No,
I
I actually thought for the most part it was probably one of the better of the MCU Disney Plus shows.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with you. So let's go ahead and get into a little bit of some news of the day. Um, we'll go ahead and get into also the Oscar winners and losers. I did find an interesting article based off of someone I was watching today on my way home. And it is a list that some of you may very well remember that may have pissed you off that
Oh
you
yeah,
may have liked.
that's a good article.
Yeah, it's a good article, and I thought I'd bring it up because it sparked a little inspiration for me, and it's always good to borrow from the people that you enjoy watching and listening to because they have a tendency and or team to bring up topics sometimes
Yeah.
when you're a busy person. And so there's a couple things here, including rumor about Film Threat and Gary from Nerderotic kind of talking to people at different cons and stuff about Star Wars. We have a Clayface movie, a Prince
Ridiculous.
documentary where the director kind of spoke out. But first and foremost, we're going to have to, at the very least, just for intents and purposes, we're going to have to give you guys the Oscar winners and losers from last night. Now, I don't know if any of y'all actually watched the
or care.
Oscars or care. I'm going to say I doubt it. I'm going to say I doubt it very much so. But to kind of give a list of the 2025 Oscars winners and losers, um, and then go back in history and look through some of those surprises. So right off the top, the headline: Zoe Saldana won for her supporting role in Amelia Perez, and Honora won Best Picture. Honora being a bit of a surprise, the leading actress being a bit of a surprise in that
Hmm.
one. Best Picture went to Honora. Um, as they give the list, this I don't think this is any like tallied list saying, "Hey, this is kind of what came in second and third." I don't think they really do that.
No, yeah,
They don't really release that information.
yeah.
Directing Sean Baker,
Well,
who
you know what gets me about the best picture winner?
what's that?
It is the fact that a vast majority of the Academy didn't watch all the movies on the list to even vote. They cast their vote without watching all of the movies on the list.
So you know as well as I know that that is a problem. That is
Yep.
also a problem if you talk about sports. If
Yep.
you talk about somebody who's voting for MVP or comeback player of the year or coach of the year, whatever. If
Yep.
if they're not paying attention, if they just have an intern fill it in, hey, what's your opinion? Fill it in for me, right?
Yep.
Put my vote in. Then it's very disingenuous. I agree with you. I think for these other filmmakers and or rather members of the Academy
Yeah, it's
to
disrespectful
just
to the people
vote
that are
a hundred
nominated.
a hundred percent. And Sean Baker for Nora recently came out talking about the fact that they need to extend the release dates times. Like for
Yeah.
theaters, it needs to go from just like a couple months or less, 45 days, which is pretty standard now, to actually giving movies a chance to go through a full run to get some of that Oscars buzz and get people out to the theaters. Instead, everything goes to streaming so quickly that
You
it
know, you
doesn't
know,
give these movies a chance to make more money.
yeah, you know why?
Well, uh, I could take a couple guesses. They're probably going to be very uneducated and probably very Neanderthal-like.
Well,
I'd
probably
rather
not.
you tell me what
No,
you think.
you think about it this way. You leave it in the movie theaters, you have to pay the movie theaters a cut of the profit, right? But you can put it on VOD or put it on your streaming service, and it'll draw people into your streaming service, which is already failing and not making enough money as it is because none of them make money. Amazon doesn't care because they run a shipping business. Netflix doesn't care because they're the biggest one out there and everybody goes to them. Everybody else is a failing streaming service.
Right.
None of them are profitable, as Bob Iger talked about recently,
Yes.
and they're trying to make changes and going through massive layoffs to try and make that deficit up, but they can't because they're spending money to make content that nobody cares about. And that's the problem is Netflix was built on good content because they licensed content from other people to put on their streaming service. They got it so they can just rent discs, right? You borrow discs from them, right? And then they turned it into a streaming service and they built a giant empire, and then they got to create a few things and they created some good stuff, but they're kind of picky and choosy about what they create, so they want it to be good. It's not always good, but at the same time they are careful where they put their money, but they also have a lot more of it than the other people because they don't have the overhead, they don't have
Right.
the expenditures
Right.
that Warner Brothers has, that Disney has. So
I mean,
it's a big problem when you have to divide the profits of putting something in the theater versus putting on streaming service. So you get it all, but you're not going to get as much because it wasn't in the theater long enough. So I agree that they should be in the theater longer.
it just that classic model that worked for decades. When that
Yeah.
gets upended the
Yep.
way that it has, yes, it poses a lot of problems.
Yeah.
And we can bring up the Iger interview just to skim over it a little bit because it is interesting
Hmm.
you know, of course he's a huge fan of bundling, right? Bundling Disney Plus, bundling with Hulu, bundling with
Well,
ESPN,
they
right?
paid all that
That's the name
money
of the game.
for they paid all that
Yes,
money for that stuff. They better make use of it.
got to figure out a way. You got to figure out a way.
I
Uh,
mean, Disney, ABC, ESPN, they've all been the same company forever, but Hulu, they paid a lot of money for Hulu and they've got to get it
yes,
back.
yeah.
And they're not getting it back.
So
Especially
so
when you do live streaming of the Oscars and other sporting events and your whole system crashes and people can't watch it.
I mean, yeah, I mean, and just to get back, quickly, just to get back to kind of the Oscars and just kind of running down, the Sean Baker, of course, that spawned a whole nother conversation, which is also something we'll get into. Just as far as the theaters and seeing a full run for a movie, right, benefiting from press, it takes a little bit to get out, right, and
Yep.
especially your
Yeah.
Oscar movies, which tend to not be your standard fare.
Right.
That's your popcorn movie that everybody's just going to show up for, which God knows there's few of those these days. I mean, it's just the truth of the matter. Actor in a leading role, The Brutalist. If anybody saw that with Adrian Brody, that's a 3+ hour movie, and that's hard for a lot of people to get through.
Yep.
You were talking about the voters. A lot of the voters were not able to finish that movie.
Yeah.
So they, based off of what they saw, cast their votes. Now, that worked out for Adrian Brody just fine. However, Timothy Chalamet, Sebastian Stan, maybe lost out because maybe a lot of those voters didn't even watch their movies.
Well, and
Didn't.
that's what they've said. Interviewers of some of the voters have said they didn't bother watching Dune. And it's been a bias of the Academy for a long time. Obviously,
Right.
as we'll go into that in a minute with your other article, but the Academy hates genre film, even if it's the best film that's ever created, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and
Yes.
they still shit on it because they don't
Yes.
want to see it, even though it's the greatest film that's ever been made, and everybody studies it in film school because every single frame and sound clip in that movie is perfect. So
When you see what Raiders of the Lost Ark lost out to,
yeah, there's that too.
then you'll understand kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But anyway, actress in a leading role. I think a lot of people thought Demi Moore with The Substance was going to take that one.
And from all
She
intents and purposes, from everything I've heard, Demi Moore should have won that because she
probably should
killed
have.
it.
Right. But that was not the case as Mikey Madison. Maybe it's Mickey. I'm not, I don't want to. But Honora again, kind of taking the role. Kieran Culkin, who's carved out a nice Hollywood career for himself as Macaulay Culkin's brother, who's done some good, serious
Yep.
roles, good actor. It took the male supporting role. Actress went to Zoe Saldana and
Mhm.
Amelia Perez. Um, screenplay, Honora. I mean, Honora kind of got not saying cleaned up, but I think it won four
They did pretty
awards.
well, and they would just want to talk about sex trafficking all the time. So I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, other than that, were there any real surprises? Flow as an
okay,
animated
so
feature
the best
instead of Inside
animated
Out
feature,
2 or Wild
Wild
Robot, which I think
Robot,
a
yeah,
lot of people, you included, felt
yeah,
like that should have won.
best animated feature. The only one in that list that I have not seen is Flow.
Okay,
And I
that's
will
interesting.
say that I loved Wild Robot, Wallace and Gromit. Inside Out 2 was pretty good. I really think Wild Robot should have won. But I will be watching Flow soon. My daughter's been begging to watch it for 2 weeks. I didn't want to watch
Okay,
it because I didn't know much about it, but now I learned a little bit more about it. There's not a single word of dialogue in the whole movie.
that's so interesting.
It's
But also,
animated, it's all animals and
right,
cats meow and dogs bark, and it's in a post-apocalyptic global flood situation.
love
Uh,
that.
and it's just this adventure, this animated French movie, and it has a lot of things that are like I don't really want to see it, but at the same time, people are saying it's pretty good. So I'm interested. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch
Yeah,
it. It's
yeah,
streaming right
yeah.
now.
Again, comes from those recommendations. If there's
Yep.
people that you trust, then hey, check it out. If you trust me, you trust Matthew to tell you, and it's something you weren't interested in, I mean, I'm not going to steer you wrong. He's not going to steer you wrong if it's something we really truly believe in.
Yep.
Best costume,
Yeah,
Wicked. That's
well, you know what?
easy.
Yeah, that was easy. There was nobody who was going to beat costume design on that one. Dune
Right.
2 could have given it a run for its money, but at the same time, I think Wicked was going to win because it's the belle of the ball in LA, right?
Yes.
It's all about
Um,
everything that they want.
Best editing. Now I haven't seen all these movies to be able to tell you what I truly think from an
Yeah.
editing standpoint, and I'm also not I'm not probably qualified truly to tell you about that, but at the same time, just watch with your own eyes. When you see scenes that are cut
Yeah.
off too quickly, when you see transitions that don't make sense, that can
Yep.
tell you a lot about a film. That can tell you a lot about a film, even though you may not be necessarily qualified to say, "Hey, this is great editing." You can see it with your own eyes. You know it. Great
Yep.
sound, great editing, camera, cinematography. Those are things you actually, if you sit down and watch movies and television shows, you can suss that stuff out for yourself. You truly
We'll
can.
talk a little more about
Compare.
that later.
Yes. Yes, we will. Best production, Wicked. That's okay. That makes sense. Original song, you know, uh,
Ugh.
anything from Amelia Perez
You
is
know
not a
what?
song. It's not a
What bugs the
song. It's
shit?
not long enough to be a song.
You know what bugs the shit out of me more than anything else on that
What's
list
that?
right there? There are two songs from Amelia Perez.
Yeah, like you talking about actual songs,
Yeah,
like
on
two
that on that
songs.
on that list for nominations,
Oh, right here.
two of
Yeah,
them are from Amelia Perez. What the
yeah,
hell?
and they're probably like 20, you know,
I've
37 seconds.
I've only heard the one, and that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And I'm like,
Right,
really? You're calling
right,
that a song?
yes, yeah, and I played part of it actually on a stream, and yeah, it's,
Oh,
well, that in that movie, honestly, folks, that movie's embarrassing.
yep. And
It's truly embarrassing. It is not a award worthy movie. It is an affront
yeah,
to movie making, in my
and
opinion.
best sound and visual effects for Dune 2. I thought this was interesting. Because I thought that Wicked might beat him out for it, but I'm
I did
glad that
too.
they got some kind of acknowledgement there.
I am too. Best visual effects, I think that definitely was going to go to Dune. I know some people really thought Alien Romulus. I look,
Oh
it's a
fuck
fine, it's
Alien
okay,
Romulus.
it's fine, but from a visual effects standpoint, Dune Part Two, to me, took the cake in that, especially
Yeah,
compared to the competition. Right? Sometimes there's heavy competition, makes you rethink that.
yeah,
Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, I thought was okay, but nowhere near the
no,
prior movies in that
no,
series.
it really
You
isn't.
know, so best makeup, don't care. Documentary short for most of those out there, not gonna watch it. Best animated short, most people are not going to watch any of these. Even live action shorts, not gonna watch them. So really, it was the main awards, and I just
Yeah,
kind of wanted to run down those main awards. Most people here in the chat do not care one bit, and I can fully understand that. It's been a long time. Been a long time since anybody really of any note cared about the Oscars, but there were times, Matthew, where
yeah.
some actually pissed you off. And I
Oh yeah.
have a few of those times based off of this Hollywood Reporter article. And so some of you may remember some of these. You may remember, even as a kid,
Yeah.
you might remember
I
some of these.
forgot which one Gary mentioned that's not on the list because that one pissed me off a lot too. But
So 20 times the Oscars got it wrong.
yeah, well, it's more
Okay?
than that. I'll tell you that.
Yes. However, that tells you quite a bit, right? 20 times. Just in this article alone,
Yeah.
pointing that out. So we're going to go through this just a little bit quickly. I did save this so that I didn't have to worry about ads.
I remember back in the day, Billy Crystal, Whoopi Goldberg, whatever, in that time frame, it was really this thing. If you were the best picture or the best director, that was the shit. That was like,
Yes,
oh wow, that's
that
great.
was a
And
big
best
deal.
actor, best actress, those were some accolades. Now nobody gives a shit because they're giving it to stuff that nobody's ever seen. No, but people that nobody've ever heard of sometimes. But yeah,
Yeah, it is quite interesting. And Johnny Reno here basically probably echoes a lot of people here says never cared about
yeah,
the Oscars. And I'm telling you, even growing up, coming up, and G.I. Jetman says Conan O'Brien sucked. So I was working, so I actually did not watch the broadcast. Let's see, that was Sunday night, right?
yeah,
Sunday night. So here's what's funny. I was not working. I worked last night, but I took my son home on Monday day. But Sunday night we were hanging out, and it didn't even cross my mind to turn it on
yeah,
one time. I
yeah.
did want to say hello to the awesome
Clint,
Clint Jorgensen here, for sure. And so nonetheless,
yeah,
going back in the time capsule, digging up some of these memories. Some of these may, if you did care at the time, some of these may jog your memory.
yeah,
Annette Bening and Glenn Close having never won an Oscar. Now you think about Glenn Close, Fatal Attraction.
yeah,
Uh, that was, in my opinion, an Oscar-worthy portrayal.
yeah.
Acting. However, didn't get it done. Uh, Austin Butler losing the 2023 Best Actor Oscar. His portrayal of Elvis, and I think you and I talked about this. I enjoyed that movie.
I thought it was good.
I thought
I
I,
thought
I
it was
like
good.
what Baz Luhrmann does, and I went to the theater to see it. I took my son, I took my mother. I went by myself prior to taking them. I enjoyed that movie quite a bit, but I'm also a big Elvis fan, so I'm a
Yeah,
little bit biased.
yeah, yeah,
But
that's fair.
his portrayal was fantastic. Like it took him like a year
Yeah,
to get out of the voice and the lip
yeah.
and the movements.
Well, Timothy Chalamet taught him learned how to sing and play the guitar for his movie, his Bob Dylan movie.
Yes. And I appreciate that. When an
Yeah.
actor puts that much into
Yep.
their craft, I appreciate that. Austin Butler put a lot into that craft of portraying Elvis, and I thought he was absolutely fantastic. I love that movie. For those of you that haven't seen it, go check it out. It really is. It's just called Elvis, 2022. But I really love that movie. Crash beating Brokeback Mountain for Best Picture in 2006. I thought Crash was so
Ridiculous.
overhyped, and
Uh,
it's a good movie, but I thought it was extremely overhyped, as well as Brokeback Mountain.
yeah.
I thought it was very overhyped, for obvious reasons. And in 2006, you could see where,
Hmm.
that makes a lot of sense. David Lynch losing Best Director to Ron Howard. Um, so
I
you
mean, David
have,
Lynch has made some weird stuff, but
yes.
he should have won one at some point.
So in this particular instance, it says here that in 2002 would have been an ideal year. Lynch
Yep.
had already been nominated, lost out for Best Director twice for The Elephant Man and Blue Velvet. And with Mulholland Drive, he managed to not only escape together a film with a failed ABC pilot, but also to craft one of the most haunting stories about the Hollywood dream machine ever produced. A Beautiful Mind with Russell
Mm.
Crowe was a good movie.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say that it's not worthy,
Yeah.
right? Hoop Dreams, man, I saw it. I don't really remember a lot of it. But
Remember Basketball Diaries with
oh,
Leonardo
100%.
DiCaprio?
Yes, I do remember that. Hoop
Sorry.
Dreams,
Yeah, I was just
I remember that a little bit.
yeah.
The Lego
But
Movie failing to land a nomination for Best Animated Feature in 2015.
yeah, that's absolutely ridiculous because that movie was awesome. Everything
Everything
is
is
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
GI Jetman, do you guys think the Springsteen biopic will be good? No, because he's a shit human being. End of story.
He is an asshole. Here's the big one right here. Chariots of Fire beating Raiders of the Lost
Yes,
Ark for the
this is
1981 Best Picture.
the
Yeah,
biggest travesty of them all.
probably so. I have to say that I have seen Chariots of Fire probably twice in my life. I've seen Raiders of the Lost Ark probably 35 times in my life.
Yep.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
put these movies side by side, it's one of those cases where the turned up noses
Yeah.
wanted to snub a genre film with
Yep.
an action star that was in a sci-fi movie that critics were not fond of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see where
Well,
that went sideways.
critics I think liked the movie still, even Raiders of the Lost Ark, but it was
I'm
a
I'm talking about Star Wars.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not going to
Well,
say there weren't critics that didn't that liked. Of course, there were, but
they didn't understand what Star Wars really was. It was a cultural phenomena. But yep.
and Harrison Ford coming out of that and then going into this,
Yep.
and I think the idea of it and him being an action
Oh
star.
yeah.
Remember, we didn't really have. Did we have action actors? Yes. Did we have action stars?
No.
The
Yeah.
Schwarzenegger, Arnold, like not
Yeah.
really.
And so the one that's not on this list takes place in the next year in 1982 when Blade Runner lost to E.T.
Right.
for
Yep.
visual effects.
Visual effects. That's right.
How does E.T. that takes place in a neighborhood lose out to a cyberpunk dystopian future universe created in Blade Runner that was so perfectly and eloquently done? That just blows me away.
So, and now think about it. If you go back, folks, and you look at some of the effects in ET, they're not great. Like, no, don't get me wrong. The
They're
ET
okay.
puppet, but
Yeah.
like some of the takeoff, landing of the ship, the bicycle.
Yeah.
If you go and look, it's almost like when you see the TIE fighters on the screen and you see the little black thing around them, though,
Some of you
right? As
kids
they're
may not
flying.
realize this, but there were versions of this movie before digital editing, and they revamped it where you could see the special effects on the
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah, right. So it's interesting just to kind of point some of that stuff out from back in the day. But nonetheless, yeah. And seeing here, Dreadnought K6, Arthur McGee. I'd have to look that name up. That's not a name familiar
Yeah,
to me.
that's right, Eric. Elliot.
Yeah, Eric Thurman in the house. Johnny Reno says E.T.'s magic finger.
Yeah.
I think we all would be a little afraid of that.
Yeah.
G.I. Jetman says Raiders should have won, but at the same time, Clay Jorgensen says, I can believe Chariots of Fire winning.
No, I mean,
Um,
I understand, but you think about the cultural impact of a movie. Did Chariots of Fire have that big of a cultural impact? I mean, Vangelis soundtrack aside,
yeah, Vangelis, great,
what
but
do you remember about that movie?
no,
Do you
I'm
remember
with
the
you.
story? Do you remember the
Right.
struggles that were had in that movie? Or do you go back and do you know every single frame and piece of stunt work and stunt actor and character in Raiders of the Lost Ark?
God, great point, dude. Great point. I mean, really, it really is. And I know some people say, well, that doesn't matter. That's not what makes up a best picture or best,
Yeah.
performance. Man, I don't know.
I
You
don't
know,
know.
it's what do you remember? Boy, I
Yeah.
remember a whole lot from Raiders of the Lost Ark. And
Yep.
I can quote certain lines. Chariots of Fire. I couldn't tell you other than
Yeah.
them running down the beach to a soundtrack is about the best thing of that movie, in my opinion. But maybe I'm wrong, and that's okay. Uh, but anyway, so yeah, I wanted to bring that up. Stephanie Hugh and Angela Bassett, which I love how they have Angela Bassett in quotation or in parentheses because losing the 2023 Best Supporting Actress Oscar. Now, folks, I want to ask you guys in the chat, what movie in 2023 did Angela Bassett star in for about 10 minutes
Jeez, I
and
have no idea.
somehow get passed over for a Best Supporting Actress nomination? Matthew, do you know?
I do not. I can't think of it.
Black Panther 2. Do you think Angela Bassett's performance in Black Panther 2 is worthy of a Best Supporting Actress nomination? She was nominated and lost, and it was a big freaking deal.
Oh, I totally forgot about that. That
Yeah.
movie was so terrible. I deleted it
Yes.
from memory.
Yes. Black Panther 2. And it became such a big deal that she did not win Best Supporting Actress for a movie that she was in probably maybe 10 minutes of screen time at best. And not great 10 minutes of screen time. I mean, that
I
to
think
me,
Angela Bassett is a great actress.
and
Don't get
Mendoza
me wrong.
nailed it right here.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I agree. I
Don't
agree.
get me wrong. She's a great actress, but
Come
that
on.
movie was garbage.
Come on. Let's not kid ourselves. Right?
The
Uh,
first Black Panther is a little bit overrated. I mean, I
uh,
enjoy it, but
extremely overrated. I remember watching it finally because I did not go to the theater to see it. I remember
what?
watching it finally and I
Racist.
thought, this is okay. Well, I've been called worse. I've been called worse. But if it,
Were you afraid to go see it in the theater?
so I'll be honest with you, Matthew, what I did is I stood out front and instead of going in first, I waited and I bought
You
tickets.
bought tickets for yes, that's right.
I
Okay.
bought
You-
tickets for any black person going to see Black Panther 1 and 2. I bought tickets for them first and then I barred the doors. I stood at the front doors and I saw every white person that walked up. I said, "You will not see this film until every black person has walked out of it. You will not see this film."
uh,
And I did that for probably about 2 minutes, and then I got punched in the face,
you
and so
think-
I left. But anyway, that was my experience. That's
you're lucky
my
that's all you
truth.
got.
That's my truth, Matthew. That's my truth. Um, but anyway, yeah, no, Angela Bassett losing out for Black Panther 2. That's an absolute joke. Let's not kid ourselves. Um, other than that, I mean, there are a couple other ones on this list that are kind of fun, but Titanic winning over LA Confidential. Folks in the chat,
LA
tell me,
Confidential is
LA Confidential or
amazing.
Titanic? You tell me.
Oh, so I would say that's a tough one because I think they are both good movies and culturally significant to what's going on there. And I love LA Confidential so much. I thought the
I
acting
do
was so much
too.
better in
I
that.
do too.
But Titanic had such a presence. It was the top grossing movie for a very long time.
And it's a
So,
good movie. It
and
is
it
a
is a good
good
movie.
movie. All right, I'm not stupid.
It is well made and pretty well acted. The story's a little ridiculous, but that's beside the
I
point.
mean, a little bit, but I'm okay with that. And
Yeah.
Wraith Mace is in the house joining us here. Love you, Wraith Mace, man. Always good to see you, buddy. Johnny Reno says, I can't even tell you any movie that came out in the last 10 years. And that is not uncommon. That's not uncommon. There's a lot of folks that are like, hey, you know what? Couldn't tell you. Hadn't seen anything. Maybe Marvel movies, Avengers, whatever, right? Let's not kid ourselves. Eric Thurman, yeah. Hey, not a bad movie. It's a long movie.
It's a long movie.
Yes.
It's pretty good, and I know. I mean, James Cameron used this as a vehicle to fund his undersea exploration of the Titanic.
Yeah.
And it sure as heck did because he's made more discoveries and documentaries on the Titanic than just about anybody. So
Right.
he did his due diligence in recreating as much as he could. We have a friend who is a Starliner person, so like he has everything from that cruise line
Oh wow.
that
Okay.
he could get historically, and he's recreated some stuff. He loves the whole Titanic mythos, and my wife loves the Titanic lore.
Yeah.
So
Look, there's a lot of people that do, including Three Star Draw says I love Titanic and LA Confidential, but I
yeah,
love period pieces, and I'm a huge Titanic lore fan, and I get that. And there's
yeah,
a lot of
no,
people that are
yeah,
huge fans of just the. I mean, not to diminish
yeah.
obviously what it's about, but there's a lot of people that are just huge fans of like everything
So
that happened, what it's about,
out of
and everything leading up to it.
out of all these things on the list, I think this is the least controversial because
I'm
both of
with
those
you.
movies are so good
They
that
are.
I mean that would be a hard decision.
Damn
Um,
it though, L.A. Confidential.
but Blade Runner versus ET for visual effects, no. Raiders of the Lost Ark versus
No.
Chariots of Fire, no.
Yes. Yeah,
Not in my
I'm with you.
opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think some are easier than others, and this is not that easy. This is
Yeah.
difficult, but man, oh man, L.A. Confidential, um, a young Russell Crowe,
Yeah.
right? Like you've got some great actors and
There's
actresses.
this,
Kim
yeah, the talent,
Basinger
the
obviously
talent is
won
awesome.
for her role. Yes, I mean that movie, the music, the soundtrack to it, just a great soundtrack, and uh, and again, that's at a time when Hollywood wasn't afraid to really, push the button on, the Irish and
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is, like, at that time period,
Yeah.
and you can't be afraid to go there.
Uh,
Yeah.
did you ever see The Departed?
I actually did not
Okay.
see The Departed.
I,
I did not.
I
Um,
I thought it was fairly good. I need to go back and watch Casino again. It's been forever since I've seen that movie, and I can't seem to find it. But I want to watch that one again because I
yeah.
remember that being one of the better gangster movies, and it's probably the only one that was about the Jewish mob versus the Italian mob in Vegas.
um, yeah, there's the only thing I heard about it mainly is that there's some hideous accents.
Ah,
Hideous accents, Boston
ah,
accents in particular.
come on,
Uh,
man, they were all right.
Ben Joseph says there have been some good B and C level horror films in the last decade. I agree.
Oh
I
yeah,
agree.
for
And some
sure.
of those have gone on to make a lot of money. A lot of money. Three Star says it also allowed him to finance going to the Mariana Trench. People forget that somehow. He's talking about Cameron. Yes, and had his friends or the people he knew that went into the Titan submersible maybe waited for him.
Yeah.
And going to the Titanic or whatever, then maybe they'd still be alive today. That's just a guess. Yeah, G.I. Jetman, the part was great. Dreadnought K6 says the part is good too. And I think most people like that movie. I'm just, from what I understand, the accents are a little off, I guess, in that movie.
Yeah.
But
I mean, whatever. They're fine.
yeah, whatever. Apocalypse Now losing the 1979 Best Picture to Kramer versus Kramer. Uh, Kramer
Oh,
versus Kramer, yeah,
well,
divorce film. We all know Apocalypse Now and many one-liners, right?
but you got to think at the time also. I mean, one, uh, um, Saving Private Ryan lost the year that it was nominated, and that was
Yes,
ridiculous. Also,
yes,
the Academy doesn't appreciate period war films whatsoever, and Apocalypse
no,
Now, when it came out, was a very controversial film. Also, you got to have to take that into context of the time.
that's
People
true.
were not willing to accept the deconstruction of the U.S. military during a time of draft,
Right,
throwing people from the draft into combat and the consequences of that and how that plays out long term in society and the culture. And that played out in Vietnam, and it was shown in Apocalypse Now, a type of version of that. And the drug usage and all this other stuff was very controversial at the time. We didn't want to think of our U.S. soldiers that way. We still wanted to think of them
sure.
as World War II soldiers. We wanted
Heroes
to
from
think of
World War
them,
II. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah, and so that tarnished the soldiers, and it tarnished. Um, it led to credence to all those people who were spitting on veterans when they came back. Not that that was a good thing, but it's like this is why this is the things that they were seeing. They were seeing this conflict in the soldiers and the war in itself, and how we were fighting something that may not have been our business, and that we should have won, and we did win, but then we turned around and pulled out anyway
right.
because of people like Ted Kennedy and other assholes. But anyway,
No, I'm with you. No, I agree 100%. It's just at the same time, and what Menjoza's saying here, as far as Kramer versus Kramer being a great movie, yes, it is a great movie. Was that a surprise? For when it comes to award season, yes, probably so, but not as big as a surprise, I think, as some of these. And Christopher Nolan snubbed for Best Director
oh yeah,
again and again and again,
and
and
again,
then we're gonna leave it on this one because yeah, it's very true. He's done some wonderful work,
yep.
done some great stuff, and yet for some reason he just cannot get recognized. Does that ultimately, Matthew, like, Is it more of a thing in Tinseltown where like this is such a big deal and it opens up so many doors? Is it selfish? Is it just personal selfishness of having that trophy on your bookshelf when people
Yeah.
come to visit other famous people? Or does it really at the end of the day, if you know you're making good art and you know what you're doing is true, does it matter?
So it shouldn't, should it?
No.
The trophy is an accolade. It's a political appointment, and based on the current criteria, it's excluded most everybody from getting one ever again,
Right.
unless they change that. So the trophy doesn't mean anything anymore. It is, if you feel you have integrity in what you are creating, then you should be satisfied in that. But Hollywood is egotistical. And so they require accolades, they
Yes.
require attention to feel like they are human or themselves or whatever the perception is. And so everybody in Hollywood will conform to whatever they feel that they should be. Birdman, I loved Birdman. I thought that was
It's
an
so
incredible
true
movie.
now. It's so true now,
and,
right?
and and it's played out to be so freaking true, especially when he came back to play the Vulture.
It's so true. It
I mean, think
really
about it.
is.
Yeah, no. If you haven't seen Birdman, I recommend you guys go out and watch Birdman. It's a very
It's
good
a
movie.
it's a great it is very
I,
good. I
Now,
agree with
curious,
you.
do you have that one picture that I sent you that would relate to Clint Jorgensen's comment here?
Let's see here. Adam Sandler being never nominated is a travesty too. Let's see here. I believe that
I think we might have a picture of him at the current Oscars.
hang on, because I'll have to email it to myself. I've
Oh, okay.
got the article there. Let's see. Just one of the ones just in the last day or two. Here we go, right here. All
There
right,
we go.
folks. I'm going to email it to myself. I'm going to bring it up, and the reason this is actually quite important, or very at the very least, just funny.
Yeah,
Considering Clint's comment,
yeah,
is yeah, it's kind of quite timely,
yeah.
and so yeah, let me bring that up. I just sent it to myself, and it's actually pretty funny. It also shows you someone who's extremely comfortable in what they've done,
Oh, yeah.
what they don't really care at this point. And This is Adam
The
Sandler.
Fetterman of Hollywood.
Yep, Adam Sandler at the Oscars. Is this picture right here, and honestly, like it kind of shows you everything that you need to know. What I love is always looking at the reactions around people.
Yeah. No,
Right? Look at the
that's
reactions
hilarious.
around the people.
Yeah.
The girl digging in her ear, for
Yeah.
one. People not wanting to look. They know the
No.
camera is on, right?
Well,
Everybody back here in the back is looking at a screen,
oh yeah.
right?
So you got to know
Hmm.
Adam Sandler has not been shy about where he stands on stuff, and
Yes.
people are definitely not wanting to be in this frame right now because of that.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that he has his own production company, he makes his own movies, he's having a good time. He gets
Right.
to work with top level talent because they'll
Yeah.
come work for him because he will pay them.
Well, he
It's the
signed
same
like
thing that,
a big, huge contract with like Netflix,
yep.
for like $60 million or $800 million, whatever.
Whatever the contract is that he signed with Netflix, it doesn't matter. He's going to make them money because he makes movies, and people are going to say, "Hey, let's check that out," because he made some really weird, ridiculous ones, and we're like, "Hey, these are pretty good," and we watched them, and they've got heart, they've got everything you want to watch in a popcorn film, in a movie, in entertainment. And is it high art? No. Is it art? Yes. Is it entertaining? Yes. And is he funny? Most of the time, right?
Yes. Yes.
He's an engaging person, and does he deserve an Oscar? I don't know about that, but I do enjoy his stuff.
Man, listen, you're not alone. And the bottom line is for a lot of people, especially our age, who were coming up during that SNL run of Chris Farley and David Spade
Yeah.
and Adam Sandler,
I
right?
love to eat turkey all the time. Turkey, turkey,
Okay.
turkey. In my mind,
So think about it though, right? Like
the only
for
Thanksgiving song ever.
but in Lunch Lady Land and everything, it's it that
Hanukkah.
it yes, yeah, the Hanukkah song, right? But for a lot of people, it's like, yeah, they followed this career, but ultimately at the end of the day, this is somebody who's pretty much stayed true to what they've
Yes.
always been. It's not like he's trying
Right.
to pretend. He's
Right.
also done some serious roles that
Yes, he
have
has.
garnered attention,
Yeah.
but are also very good.
Yeah.
And yeah, 3 star draw says piece of shit car, right? That was a great one. Jay Astro, good to see you here, buddy. If you make good art, it's nice to be recognized, even if you don't need validation. I agree. And
Well,
look, as a
absolutely.
human being,
Yes.
it is always nice to have someone recognize what you
Yeah.
do, especially when you put your heart and soul behind it, especially when you put a lot of effort behind it. And for people to recognize that's valuable. That's valuable to a human being. It just is. I don't give a shit what anybody says. That's valuable to somebody. Yeah, Uncut Gems, he should have won.
Yeah.
That is some of the best acting that you'll see, and also very surprising
Yeah.
from him.
Yep.
He absolutely 100% crushed, absolutely crushed it.
Yeah.
So, yes, Uncut Gems is fantastic. But
You know,
nonetheless, yeah, it is funny though, and
and
you
and
sent me
it
this.
yeah, it doesn't matter that he's pissed about it or whatever. He is who he is, and he's going to be himself. And right now,
Yeah,
that image right there tells you exactly what you need to know. I'm going to be me. I don't
yeah,
give a fuck about you
yeah, don't
anymore.
care. Yeah, don't care. There's only a couple more in here. Inception losing Best Picture to The King's Speech. I agree.
Well,
Inception was really good.
I don't know. The King's speech was pretty good, and it had a lot to say. And I
Man, all it
understand that's
was
more of an
was
art speech.
King's Speech.
Okay, okay, go back to
I'm just kidding.
Inception, right? Right, no, it's Inception, right? So
Yeah, it was Inception. I
it
loved Inception.
it's another Nolan movie where you can't hear half the fucking dialogue, and the
Uh-huh.
soundtrack overplays the vocalizations, and it goes into his nonsensical storytelling. Um, and I have a lot of problem with some of Nolan's stuff, but I I
Right.
I enjoyed um, Interstellar more than I did Inception.
Well, look, I'm with you. I'm with you, and I understand that. So look, I get that point of view. I did think that Inception was a really fun movie, and yeah, 3 star draw. I don't give a fuck. Happy Gilmore 2 is on the way. Yes, it is. I do know a little bit about it. Dan Patrick is also in that movie, which he's been
Dan
in a bunch
Patrick.
of Sandler. Oh yeah, he is. He's been in almost every Sandler movie. And After 10 movies, I think
That's
Adam
funny.
Sandler buys all his friends a car after being
Oh
in
yeah,
10 of his movies. And so
that's
Dan
funny.
Patrick is owed a car. Amy Adams not getting nominated for Arrival. I liked Arrival. I don't think it was just an
Yeah.
amazing film. And but anyway, so that's just a
Hey,
walk
look,
down memory
Sniper
lane.
Scout. This goes back to the whole thing with Hollywood, except for in the case of Ben Stiller, um, playing a retard wins.
Hey, yes, it does. That's so true. Uh,
Never
if
go full
if
retard though.
if you've been, well, no, I mean, just yeah, well, anyway, I almost said something really brutal there for people to hear, but it's true. Um,
Tropic Thunder is a hilarious movie and should be
yeah,
enjoyed every so often because no movie will ever be made like that ever again.
no, I agree 100%. But yeah, that's pretty funny. So there was a story here that I saw as we move along, and we're
Shooter
about to get
McGavin.
uh as we're about to get into it. The Prince doc that was supposed to come out on Netflix, it was 9 hours long, 9 hours.
Oh man.
But however, it violated certain terms, and the family
Mm,
of Prince did not want it to go past 6 hours. So there was a
mm,
sticking point. But it says the Prince doc director addresses Netflix cancellation. It was a joke.
mm.
Uh, Ezra Edelman responded on Tuesday to Netflix's announcement that they would not release his Prince documentary, calling the decision short sighted, stifling, and a joke. Controversy over Edelman's documentary first made headlines in September when a New York Times report alleged that the 9 hour project would accuse Prince of physical and emotional abuse, which he was kind of known for those that are super
Yeah.
fans.
I mean, he had a little Napoleonic syndrome there. I mean, he was
Yes.
when he got some power, some fame, and some money, he used it to push people around. I mean,
And get what he wanted. It is
yeah,
true. As big a
yeah.
fan as I am, I've seen it. I've watched it. I follow it. The Prince Estate said at the time they were working to resolve matters, and
Mm.
Netflix revealed in early February that the streamer would not release the documentary, instead working with the estate to develop a new project, which of course is going to be rainbows and lollipops and candy canes, and it's going to say everything was great and there was no strife, no tribulations,
So they're not going to include the Kevin
everyone
Smith
was
story.
happy. What's that?
So they're not going to include the Kevin Smith story.
No, they probably will not include the Kevin Smith story.
Hey,
Now, I
you
did watch
know,
just
right?
hang on. You sound like a robot. You sound like a robot a little bit.
You know
Uh,
that Kevin Smith story, right?
I do know the Kevin Smith
Yeah. Okay.
story.
Okay. Yeah.
He was initially contacted to record a documentary to follow him around,
On
and
the creation of that one album.
yes, you definitely sound like a robot. I don't know what's going on, but you definitely have some connection issues. If you want to just take a peek at those, uh,
My is solid. It
it's
might
pretty.
sound funny to
It's
everybody.
woo. Yeah, it's you've got some problems going on. I don't know. But hopefully we'll break through them and it's all good cuz I'm very patient in that aspect. The internet is what it is. But nonetheless, my point being about this is that if you guys get a chance, go check out the Pablo Torre finds out. Now, Pablo Torre was a guy that was on Around the Horn on ESPN. He did other ESPN stuff. He's a sports reporter. He had another friend come on. They did a whole like hour talking about this documentary. So they probably revealed more about the documentary than you'll ever really get. So if you are interested, this Pablo Torre finds out was actually a pretty good stream or podcast about this documentary. But it says that the director did not comment on the Netflix announcement last month, but this week called the debacle a joke. The estate, here's the one thing they were allowed to do: check the film for factual inaccuracies. Guess what? They came back with a 17-page document full of editorial issues, not factual issues, he said. You think I have any interest in putting out a film that is factually inaccurate?
Hmm.
And that's where I agree. This is the guy that made OJ Made in America, which won awards. That was a big documentary. So this is someone who wants to stay true. This is not somebody making shit up. This is somebody who's crossing his T's, dotting his I's, interviewing people, going through his sources, reporting those sources, and somehow this documentary was full of editorial inaccuracies. And so it tells you that the Prince estate is very, very concerned with controlling the image they want to uphold, because if there's any loss of money, guess who doesn't gain from that, Matthew? The family members who are in
Right.
control of the estate.
Right.
So in their eyes, they have to keep up anything that has to do with it being positive, because they lose money if
Right.
they do not. And that's what I find so horrible about this situation. I'm a huge Prince fan. I am a huge Prince fan. But at the same time, I understand not everybody's perfect.
Yeah.
And so it's a shame. It's a shame this won't get released. It's a shame that the public won't get to see. Did he physically abuse some of his girlfriends or dancers or whatever? I don't know. We don't know. Speculation is there. But again, you know, it's like a football player. It's like a baseball player. It's like any artist. People can sometimes separate the art from the actual person, and
Yeah.
some people can't do that. But
Yep.
that's up for the public to decide.
Yep.
If one of his former girlfriends wants to tell their story, their truth, I'm not saying I'm here to believe every single thing, but I am going to say I'm here to listen
Hmm.
and suss out my own opinion based off of the information presented to me. But when
Right.
a family blocks the information from being presented, that's where I have a
Curious.
problem. Punk with
Curious.
Toys is in the chat. What's going on at Punk with Toys?
So
Just remind you guys, Friday night at 10:30 Eastern, I'm going to have Punk on as a guest on my Unfiltered, and we're just going to have a good time. I built it up and said, hey, we're going to turn the tables and all that stuff. Look, it's he gets to interview people on Thursday nights and has a good time with it. I just wanted to do that on my side, so there's no gotcha moments, there's no nothing like that. It's just hanging out, having a good time, and maybe talking about stuff that hasn't been brought up, or toys or whatever. There'll be a little bit of talk about that, but I just thought it'd be fun to have him on. Uh, as a guest on a Friday night and just chat a little bit and maybe kind of have some fun talking about stuff that maybe doesn't get brought up or hasn't been talked about. So
yeah.
should be fun, and I appreciate him doing it. He's an absolute champ for doing that, and I have not given him a lot of information and said this is what we're gonna do and this is what we're gonna go over. But I did promise him we're not gonna get into politics, not gonna get into religion or anything like that. I'm not gonna. This is not some gotcha moment, so I'm not gonna do that to him. But just hang out and have a good time, and I think it'll be fun. So hopefully you guys will tune in Friday night. Jay Astro, are you going to expose a punk with toys? No, I am not, because folks, you already know there's nothing to expose. If there's one person who lays it all out there for
It's
you,
all
who
there.
shows receipts and isn't afraid to tell you what the fuck he's thinking, well, that's him.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's why I appreciate it, because I like real people. That's a real person. Ain't afraid to speak his mind. I'm not either. No, but we're not going to get into some of the stuff I normally talk about because he doesn't want to, and I'm
Yeah.
okay with that.
Yep.
That's fine with me. I appreciate that. So, holy shit, there were two Matthews. Well, folks, you don't know the half of it, or the double of it for that matter. Anyway, so enough about that. I just want to bring that up because I am a huge Prince fan, and I think it's a
Yeah.
shame that we're not going to get the opportunity to suss through that and get some info from that.
Yeah.
That documentary. Really quickly, we're just gonna bang through these pretty quick. The Clayface movie, Matthew, are you interested in a Clayface movie? Is that something that you want to see? I think this is a bad move for James Gunn. I think this is a terrible direction for James Gunn to go in, and I think it's going to fall flat on its face.
I mean, look at the Penguin, right? Oh, wait, he had nothing to do with that.
He had
Um,
nothing to do with it.
if they can do Feet of Clay, I think it would be fascinating. But the problem is, you don't have Batman in your universe. How are you going to do all these things without Batman in your
Well, isn't this
universe?
like the Spider-Man verse and for Sony? You're
Yes.
going to do Craven and you're going to do Morbius and you're going to do whomever, but if you don't
Yep.
have them fighting Spider-Man, then nobody cares.
Who cares? Yes. If you don't have this Sinister Six, if you don't have all these guys fighting Spider-Man,
It's
what's it
ridiculous.
going to do to create Penguin and Clayface and the Joker or anyone else, and they're not fighting Batman? And quite honestly, if they do a Joker origin story, they're going to shoot themselves right in the head, because the Joker movie was as good as a Joker origin story as anyone could ever make, and it's so ambiguous that you should leave it alone because Joker 2 is worthless.
Right.
Um, and you shouldn't ever make a Joker origin story, because this is the problem with Hollywood: is they're obsessed with origin stories, and you don't need to be obsessed with origin stories. You need to be obsessed with telling a freaking good story. Give me compelling characters. I don't care where they came from. Tell me where they are right now.
Let's not kid ourselves. I think it's about just trying to make up content. I think it's about
Yeah.
just trying to
Oh
find
yeah.
something to make a movie about. I think
Okay.
it ultimately is like, hey, we have this IP.
Yeah.
We need to put some money into it and
Yeah.
figure out what can we do with this to build up any kind of excitement or anything. However, it has nothing to do with anything that we're currently doing,
Right.
but I mean, shit, it might as well be a tax write off.
Well, okay, we're almost there. Um, how many projects has James Gunn already canceled? Because there are several of them that have already been canceled that you may not be aware of, because they've already moved forward enough in saying we can't do this, we can't do this, we can't do this now. So these things that you said you wanted to do, you can't do. And the Batman 2, the Robert Pattinson film, is being put on the shelf until after Superman comes out.
Yes.
Depending on how well Superman does, will depend on if there will ever be a Batman 2, even though it's on the IMAX schedule in 2017 or 2027.
Yeah,
Um,
2027.
2027. And so it's dependent on, will that movie succeed or not? If it fails, the Batman 2 is a sure thing. If it succeeds, the Batman 2 may not be a sure thing.
Yeah, I just have a feeling. I mean, stuff like this, kind of gets headlines, right? And you get people talking and say, "Oh, the director of," but like we heard nothing about this. Just came completely out of left field.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, "Oh, we've got to have a Clayface origin story." Well, do we? And then you read a little bit about it and you think, well, hey, man, I love the Batman universe. And I do. I truly do.
Yes.
Batman graphic novels, it's my
Well,
favorite, kind of superhero, I guess,
so
world in a way. But there's nothing about this that
no.
interests me at
Yeah.
all.
Well, so I'm gonna throw it at you this way. Okay, from a corporate perspective, the buzz in the geekdom in the comic book universe is
Okay.
Batman and Spider-Man have the greatest pantheon of villains
Yeah,
in the
Rogues
comic book
Gallery is
universe.
great.
The
Yes, I
the
agree.
Rogues Gallery that both of those characters have is the most impressive and deep
Right.
of all of comic books. And so they got attached to that, and they said, we can tell all these villain stories. Well, guess what? They're villains. How do you make a
Yes.
movie about a villain and make it compelling? Well, it takes a lot. And it takes a very talented writer to make that come through and make it entertaining and engaging and worthwhile to watch. Now, do you want to watch it again? Maybe, maybe not. Probably not, because you've got Taxi Driver, you've got Kings of Comedy, you've got The Joker, right?
Right.
They're all the same movie, and they're all compelling, but nobody ever wants to watch them again. You watch them once, you're done. You don't ever have to watch them again.
They
Be-
require no repeat viewing. I mean,
that's
not
right.
really.
Right, because you understand what's going on, and you don't have to go down to that dark level of of mental delusion.
Right.
The deep dark places they dig into are not worth rewatching. There's
Right.
a movie that is the symbol pi, 3.1415, etc. And it is a black and white independent film, and it is one of the most dark, deep, weird movies that I've probably ever seen. And I've watched it 1.5 times. I couldn't get it through it the second time. I watched it the first time. I got the point of it. I understood what they were saying. I have no need to ever watch it again, right? Because
Right.
it's
Right.
it's so emotionally and soul draining. It's not worth it, because you understand the concepts that are in it. You can protect yourself from that moving forward, right? So
Right.
there's a limit to the villainy that we can want. People want to see heroes. They want to see success. They want to see the good guys win. Okay, that's what people want. And those,
You don't mind seeing the villains win like an Empire Strikes Back. But you need to, because it breaks it up.
yeah,
But you need to believe that your heroes
yes,
are in it for the long run, that they're going to
that's right.
figure it out, that they're going to turn it around, right?
Yes, yeah,
But that requires a multiple film or a multiple kind of, I say storyline, but you know what I'm saying. Like,
yeah,
if you're gonna do a one-off about a Batman villain or a Spider-Man villain, a Craven film or a Clayface film, it just doesn't. We already know this is not a multi-film project.
Right.
So that means you're not only are you getting a film about a villain that a lot of people really don't really care about,
Right.
but on top of that, you're also not really including the main character that villain has really any reason to be important to anyone
Right.
that's a fan.
Yeah.
You could say, "Hey, I'm a Clayface fan. I'm a Craven fan." Okay, fine. But the reason why you are is because of their relationship with the protagonist.
If you like Craven, it's because of Craven's The Last Stand, right? It's because of that Spider-Man
The
story
yes, and I yes,
that you love
yes.
him.
Love it.
If you love Clayface, it's because of Feet of Clay, right? It's
Right.
because of Batman the Animated Series.
Right.
It's because of the journey that they go on involving your hero,
Yes.
because it always revolves around the hero. That's why they're the freaking hero. you
So
know,
so I just the reason I want to bring this up because I didn't want to get too deep in the weeds with it. Clayton Morganson said that is why Cobra Kai works so well. Yes. I think you had the yin and yang, both sides,
you had the
right?
reason for the conflict. You
Yes.
had the deep understanding of the villain, and in that case, you know, you made it human. And Johnny's not the villain. He was a victim of circumstance between an abusive father and an abusive sensei, and how that worked out and played out later in life, and what he learned from that journey that he went on. you
Yes,
know
and this is Three Star Draw has a perfect comment. I'd like to see Clayface brought to life in his origin story, if he's fighting Batman, because otherwise,
what's the
okay,
point?
what's the point? The
Yeah.
same thing with the Craven movie, the
Yeah.
same thing with any of them, right? Morbius, it doesn't matter. If
Yeah.
you don't get the main reason why this person exists, all right, then who cares?
Right.
Nobody cares. And there's a star comment that sets off a couple in a row that I just wanted to highlight as
Yeah, there
well.
we go. There we go. Get it.
Uh, Warchest says I watched Craven. It was so bad, and all those Venom movies were trash. I can't argue with that.
Okay, Worcester, I gotta tell you, Venom: The Last Dance is on streaming, and I happened to watch it this past weekend. It's
And
it's popcorn fun, man. Yeah, it's bullshit. It doesn't make any sense. I enjoyed watching it. It was just fun. Craven, I can't imagine being fun, but I like that actor, so I'm probably gonna watch it at
right.
some point when it's on streaming also. But those three Venom movies are terrible. But I love them.
You look, the first one I thought was fine. The
Yeah.
second one I was like, okay, I'm checked out. So for
Okay, so
me,
I will say
that
this.
makes me not want to even give a
Right.
shit about watching the third one.
I will say the third one's better than the second one, in my opinion, because the character doesn't revert. You move it
Okay.
forward. You move it forward from the last Spider-Man movie. So he starts out that movie in that bar in the other universe before he
Okay.
gets pulled back through.
So
So that's where the Last Dance starts, and I think that's really interesting. And they went all kinds of crazy with it, but I enjoyed it because it was a fun action movie that was dumb, and you don't have to pay attention too much to it, and it
okay,
is
so
what it
remember
is.
that. Matthew, remember you saying that,
Yeah.
right? Just that phrase you just said. Dumb action movie or show, right? You
Yeah.
don't have to put that much into it. You don't have to think that much into it because that's going to relate into what you and I are going
Yeah.
to talk about here in just a very few short minutes. Uh, and as I get through this really quickly, yes, you guys, you knew about the GI Joe pre-orders. We're not going to go over the figures. Everybody knows about it. You knew about the pre-orders today. They went up at 12 Central Standard Time today. Luckily, my cousin was there for me to bang those out because I was worried about flat tire, getting to work, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I
I did get Breaker there. I'm gonna have maybe an issue getting him. I don't know if he's
Oh,
gonna
I
be.
had Breaker. I had Breaker on Target pulled up, and then AAA called me.
Yeah.
And by the time I got back around to trying to get back to pre-order him, it was sold out. Look, folks, you're not going to have a proper. You're not going to have a problem getting Breaker. Let's
I
not
hope
kid
not.
ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not going to have a problem getting any of these figures. That period of time, in my opinion, for GI Joe Classified is over. It's done. Unless it is a SDCC or something like that, you're not going to have trouble getting these figures. You're gonna get what you want. So don't sweat the small shit. Okay, don't sweat it. Um,
Hey, I
so
don't know if you noticed it or not. I want to bring this up because nobody's brought it up yet.
let's do it.
Have you seen all the pictures of the polar bear? Because on the
I
belly
have.
on the belly of the polar bear, there's like this weird little line that goes around him. And my first thought was, hey, can you cut him open like a tauntaun and fit a figure in there? I don't think so. But I wonder if there's a
Oh,
panel that you can move from the belly of the bear that exposes
stop it.
more. If you look, there's two images that Shooting the Galaxy has,
Okay,
and
okay.
there's this line around the bear's belly. And I'm like, can you take that off? That'd be freaking cool.
I'd love to get it out of the box, open it up, remove the panel, and a Hoth Han Solo pop out. Oh my god. With a lightsaber in his hand. Or a Luke who's been wrapped up in the belly of the beast.
So,
That would
I
be
just
awesome.
sent you an image. If you look at it and zoom in, you can see that line where there is a clear cutout,
Okay.
and it is a circular cutout around the belly, and it's not an articulation point.
Okay.
It's something that's glued on there. I'm wondering if you can take that off and there's something underneath there. I don't know, but it looks interesting enough to me to make that comment.
All right, let me see. I can let's see, email it to myself really quickly.
I think that's hilarious, and I just got a kick out of that. I saw that today, and I was like, I said,
Pretty
oh
good.
crap! I threw it in the mod group in one of my GI Joe groups. I don't think anybody's paying attention to it because I'm sure it's nothing,
Sure,
but
sure, sure, sure.
but it's just this line where they clearly had to stick that thing on there,
Right.
so there could be
I don't
something
know.
underneath it.
Let's see. All right, there it is. There it is. And then let me go back to here.
No,
Let's.
Dreadnought 6, that was an air bladder. So, well, okay, if it's an air bladder, I don't know, but yeah, Fiona's was different in my mind.
All right, so there we go. All right, that's what you're talking about, Matthew. Let's
Can you
zoom
zoom
in.
in? It
I
might be
can.
kind of
I
hard
can.
to.
I see it. No, I
Yeah,
see it
okay,
right
okay,
there. Now,
yeah.
isn't that for the knives? Isn't that for the knives or whatever sticking out? Right? Do you remove that
No, no,
part
no.
right there?
That's only the one shoulder panel.
Hmm.
So the shoulder panel has that on there, and if you look at Fiona's, there's no cut. Well, okay, maybe you could see it, but that's like the air bladder that's there on Fiona.
Okay.
Um, it doesn't seem as pronounced as the one on the bear, but I could be wrong. I mean,
Interesting.
I'm sure it's just an air bladder thing. Sure, sure.
Well, yeah, we'll see. I mean, either way, I did want to bring it up just to say, hey guys, if you didn't get the pre-orders, jump on it. But everybody knew about it, so I'm not giving you any news. We weren't breaking any news. There is a
No, no,
little
no.
bit tomorrow. I want to say for 3-star draw to go over. He sent me a video,
Well,
and a
but
lot of you will
tomorrow's
have
the
watched it by then.
Daredevil Born Again action figure drop.
And we may very well go over that. But speaking of Daredevil Born Again, now, do you want to get into quickly, and I mean quickly,
Yeah, let's
the
do it.
rumor that Star Wars has been been sold for 7 months?
Okay, yeah, we can talk about it real quickly because I think it's bullshit.
I do too. However, a couple people that you and I follow.
No, that's not. If you listen real closely to what he said,
Yes.
there have been feelers maybe put out there about what people think about this, that, or the other. It's not to say that it's being put out there to be sold, right? It's just it's rumors. I don't think they're thinking about selling it at
Right.
all. Not at this point. There's too much invested in it. They haven't made their money back yet, and if they sold it, they would need to sell it for like $8 billion for them to make their money back.
Yeah, well, they're not gonna. I mean, if they ever did sell it, they're not gonna make the money back that they
No,
sunk into
yeah,
it.
and
It is what it is. They've lost enough.
yeah,
It is what it is.
yeah.
Says who would buy it? Lucas Spielberg? No,
No.
actually. However, the rumor out there that is that it's been having been shopped for like months.
Yeah.
Just that. Now, it doesn't mean that's necessarily all of Lucasfilm as far as Indiana Jones or anything else associated.
Yeah.
Just the Star Wars IP. Now,
Well, that doesn't make sense either.
would you guys in the chat, would you want that to be sold? And if it was, who would you want to buy it? If that was a possibility, is there anybody out there, any company that you would want to see that go to? That you feel like could make, because I'm not gonna lie to you, when it was sold to Disney in 2012, right? And I remember 20 yeah, no 20 yeah 2012 2013. And then when I remember looking through and seeing, oh wow, it's like, boy, Disney could probably do a lot with it, but that was
Yeah.
before the Disney we know now.
Well, and okay, so going back to that time frame, when he sold to Disney, I was like, he sold to the princesses? What? Why would he sell to Disney? Okay, they've got a lot of money. Maybe there's something there, and I kind of got on board with it. But my first reaction was that doesn't make sense.
I thought it was more about the animation, the Imagineers, the imagination part. More than
Yeah,
like it's a girl's brand. You
yeah.
understand where I'm coming from?
I okay, so I can see that, and that's fair, and for part of me, I'm like, well, okay, they've got a lot of money. They could do some interesting things with this.
All right.
And then, The Force Awakens came out and I was excited. And then The Last Jedi came out and then it was over.
Yeah, you already know that's. It's just curious because I obviously have the video queued up. It doesn't matter. We don't need to
Yeah.
watch
Yeah.
it.
I
But
I
but
loved
the
Star
the,
Wars.
the rumor on the street, I did too. A huge Star Wars fan my whole life,
Now,
but
I would tell you that in
it's been beat up.
1990, in 1990,
Uh-huh.
I got heavy into Star Wars. And the reason I got heavy into Star Wars more than I had ever been before in my entire life, even though I loved Star Wars, but it wasn't a big thing in my life because GI Joe was always tops. Masters of the Universe was more important than Star Wars. I loved Star Wars though, from what I knew about it. But in 1990, I went all in because of Timothy Zahn's books.
Oh yeah,
Heir to the
absolutely.
Empire, The Last
Yeah.
Command. Those things were amazing, and that storytelling was a continuation of a story that I was like, oh, that's so amazing, and I got heavy into reading everything I could on Star Wars at that point.
Right.
And with
I'm with you. I'm with you.
dyslexia and ADHD, it was kind of an issue for me, but that got me into reading like hardcore, right? And I dove into it, and then all the way up until 2005, 2008, 2012. Oh wait, Disney bought it. This isn't the same. This isn't the same quality. Everything that came out after that, I was like, this doesn't match up. And
Right.
there were a couple things here and there. There's a Darth Vader comic book series that I liked, but I was just disappointed in everything else. But we've rehashed that enough,
Yeah,
probably.
yeah. Yes, I do want to say the Iger for next week.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
article. I do
Sure.
want to say because we really need to get into Daredevil
Yeah.
and to a little bit rehash the seasons 1 through 3, folks. If you have not watched season 1 through 3, from the Netflix series. We're gonna get into it. Now we did start a little bit late, so I'm not afraid too much about running over. But at the
No,
same
we're
time, I
fine.
want to respect Matthew's time.
No, we're
So,
good.
so we're gonna kind of rehash seasons 1 through 3. We're gonna give you an idea of kind of the setup. We're gonna give you an idea of where things were left off, and then we're going to get into Born Again. So, how just to approach this, okay? And I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of share a screen, just to get something up there, and get us going. Let's see here. There we go. Okay, just to prep for Daredevil, Born Again, because that's where we're really ultimately at right now. Okay. Let's get rid of that. And let's
While you're
just
setting that up real quick, Clint, you're in the middle of
absolutely.
Gotham. I like the beginning and the
I
end
like
of Gotham.
Gotham.
The middle of Gotham was a little bit rough, but the beginning and the end of it, I enjoyed it. I thought there were some interesting things that happened in there.
I like I liked Gotham actually. I really did, and I enjoyed watching that week to week. That was a fun show to me. But again, I've told you guys I am a huge, Batman fan. So for me, it's right up my alley. But at the same time, I can understand where it was kind of goofy for a lot of people. That it was not what they would care for out of that because there's no Batman for one. So now you're going off of other characters. And
Well,
it's the portrayal of those characters that really make the difference. They can make or
yep.
break it. And there were different portrayals of those characters than maybe
No,
what traditionally. I actually loved Gotham in
yep.
relation to Daredevil. I liked what they did with it.
Yeah, I did enjoy the Penguin character very much and his change, his growth. I mean, the Penguin was the main character of the show, right?
Yes, 100%.
And the Joker esque things that they got into were a little weird, but it was okay. You got into Arkham Asylum, you got into Doctor Strange, you got a little bit into Bruce Wayne at the end, and for the most part, I thought it was entertaining and worthwhile. I mean, Fish
Yes.
Moody was a little strange, but I thought the Penguin
Yeah.
was the crux of the show, and Paul Rubens got to play Penguin's dad again because he played him in Batman Returns.
And yes, I love that Paul Rubens was there and was able to come back. Dreadnought K6, have a good night. I will see you soon. Talk to you soon, I'm sure. And yeah, going back to obviously that and what spurred this. I did enjoy it. I thought it was great for especially if we're gonna get a series, and that was on network television, by the way, folks. This
That
was
was on
not on streaming.
ABC.
This
That was
was on
on
ABC.
ABC.
Yes, which
Yeah.
had its moments. It had its dark moments. Now, was it able to show some of the violence? Was it able to show
Yeah.
splatter, right? No.
Do
You
you know
know,
what the most
they got
interesting
creative
thing?
with it. Yeah.
The most. Oh, that was on Fox. Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, I thought it was
Oh my
ABC
bad.
for some
That's right.
reason.
Well, it was
Okay,
Fox. It was
sorry,
Fox because it
sorry.
wasn't
Yeah,
controlled
yeah.
by Disney. That's
I
right.
was going to say that'd be
Yeah.
really strange if Disney was in control of Warner
Yeah,
Brothers.
I was just trying to think of like what we used to watch it on because we watched it
Yeah,
weekly, and I'm like, can we
yeah,
turn it to ABC? No, that was Nashville or whatever the bullshit.
yeah.
But yeah,
Yep,
okay, so Fox, yeah, it was Fox. That's right.
that makes sense.
Yeah, very good. Um, I did like the portrayals. I thought that they did a great job with it, and I thought it was a fun show. But yes, you're right. It bogged down in the middle
Yeah,
in relation to what we're talking about here.
no comparison.
Okay, no comparison because uh, season one of Daredevil, the Netflix series, is probably one of the best things on television I've seen. I love Breaking Bad. I love Better Call Saul. There are other shows that I would put up there, right, in that pantheon. It's Game of Thrones, season 1 through 3 or 4, right?
Yep.
Three at the, whatever. Um, Season one of Daredevil, if you haven't gone back and watched it, if you had never watched it before, it is compelling. It
Yep.
is interesting from the get go. The
Yep.
first episode grabs you and captures you. By the time you get to episode 3, it
Yeah.
really
Oof,
captures you
gotcha.
and grabs you, right?
Yep.
And so just to get into it, right? You see the backstory in season 1 between Matthew and his father. His
Yep.
father's a boxer. His
Yep.
father takes money to take dives, which we've seen. That's a story as old as time.
Yeah.
Um, Go ahead. I know you want to say
I,
something.
well, yeah. It's just that season one is one of those seasons that's a perfect season of television.
Right.
You go back to, and I can name 3 or 4 perfect first seasons of television if you watch them in order and in perpetuity, right? I mean, the acting, the writing, everything hit on all cylinders. And in my opinion, the season 1 of Daredevil, every episode is a banger. Every episode, you're paying attention, you're engaged, and it's riveting. The acting is superb. The writing is superb. The interactions with the priest, I think, are some of the best and most telling of the writer's heart in this. And if you think about this, I'll say this: season 1 had a lot of episodes that were written or co-written or assisted. He was in the writer's room, whatever. He's got writing credits on most of them. Is a man named Christos Gage. Now, if you recognize that name, you might recognize it from something very, very important to the G.I. Joe community, because Christos Gage wrote the first miniseries for the Chuckles series. So
Okay, wow. See, yeah, I did not know that.
so
That's
so
interesting.
so Christos Gage and Mike Costa wrote the entirety of the Chuckles series, and I believe Christos was involved in the first 16 issues of the Cobra series, because there was only supposed to be 4, and then it was 8, and then it was 12, and then it was an ongoing series, right? And they did a couple specials, but Christos Gage and Mike Costa together were phenomenal. Christos Gage on his own, doing his own thing, is also
Okay.
phenomenal. Mike Costa was pretty darn good as he carried it forward, but Christos Gage was involved with that espionage thriller storyline in G.I. Joe, and he wrote a lot of these episodes for Daredevil season 1.
Okay. So ultimately, obviously, fleshing out the character in season 1. For those of you that do or do not know about Daredevil, he's a blind lawyer. He had toxic chemicals spilled on his face, his eyes when he was 9 years old.
And those toxic
And
chemicals created the Ninja Turtles, by the way, just curious.
that, yes, that's true. They did. That's the secret of the ooze. But nonetheless, so he has all of his other senses, right, are amazing. He just can't see, but he can see in other ways. I thought in the original series they portrayed it very great. I thought it was very good that the way
Yeah.
they portrayed him being able to actually see,
Yep.
right? And obviously hear, and he can hear shit going on like a mile away, 2 miles away, whatever. That's fine. You suspend your disbelief to an extent, whatever. But I thought that ultimately every episode of season 1 was extremely riveting.
Yeah.
You kept hanging on. You
Yeah.
wanted to know what's going on. They introduced Wilson Fisk, right? But Wilson Fisk is not known as the Kingpin, but Wilson Fisk has a great role to play, but you really don't see him for the first like couple 3 episodes,
Yeah.
until
They don't even
he
say his name.
don't even say his name. He has basically a guy that's kind of a stand-in for Wilson Fisk.
Yeah.
Wilson Fisk. He is James Wesley. He is kind
Yeah.
of the
So
the
good.
guy who gets shit done. He
So
reminds
good.
me of the recruiter from Squid Game.
Yep. Mhm.
It's like a fun character who is a no nonsense. He's a badass and he knows it and he gets shit done. And it's no nonsense. And I
He is the Will.
appreciate that.
He is the Smithers to Burns.
Right. Season 1 really is about the creation of the Daredevil character. It's about the rising up of the Wilson Fisk character.
Yeah.
He falls in love with someone, and that becomes his whole basis for living. Wilson Fisk murders his father with a hammer. His mother basically covers it up. She also
No, so
say
hold on. That may be confusing to some people. Wilson Fisk murders his own father,
Yeah,
not
his
Matt
own.
Murdock's father.
Wilson Fisk murders his own father,
Yeah.
and it kind of comes out of nowhere. But my point is that every time he looks at himself in the mirror, he sees a reflection back of him as a young boy with blood covered all over and the
Yeah.
hammer in his hand, right? So he
Well,
struggles with it.
but I mean, there's so much more that happens in there, because he was put against the wall to think about who he is and what kind of man he wants to be against this blank wall, while his dad beats his mom, and then he comes
Yes.
up and decides to be the man he wants to be because that's what his father told him to do after
Yes.
kicking a guy half to death earlier that day who had bullied him earlier. And so he takes a hammer and sticks it in the back of his dad's head and murders his dad in a most gruesome way. And his mom helps him cover it up. And so that wall that he was staring at becomes an impetus for his relationship moving forward with this woman who eventually becomes his wife, but was an art dealer. And it was based on this painting that he was staring at. And he says, I feel so alone when looking at this, but it's the thing that he wants to stare at. So he buys this painting at this art gallery from this woman who's fascinating. There's so many intricate story
Yeah,
elements
there's a lot of
in this.
layers. There's a
Yeah,
lot of layers. You and not to just sit here and go through all of it, but in season
yeah,
one in particular, you obviously get the layers of uh Matthew Murdoch's partner, Froggy Nelson, his law partner.
yeah.
You get the addition of Karen Page into the fold, who is someone that Daredevil Matthew rescues from being murdered. And
And
so
early on, you get the introduction of the night nurses, which is a whole different category or comic book storyline. And Claire and coming in and saving his life when he gets in danger way above his head. So you have all
right.
these story elements and comic book elements and everything is brought together because of the creative team that they had on this show, who loved Jeff Johns, loved this storyline. Christos Gage loved these storylines, and you can tell it in every single episode.
And I guess for me, like not knowing about the nurses and not knowing about a lot of the lore, then for me it's really about, okay, let me watch the show, let me follow the show, let me see what it gives me. And I don't, as a casual watching it, look, I don't know about the night nurses. I don't get that, right? Yeah, I know a lot of the fans will get that.
Yeah.
Okay. I get the character Rosario Dawson plays, Claire. I get some of the other people that help. I get, Ellison, and I get Ben Urich, and I get all these. The Ben Urich is a
Oh,
reporter who works for
yeah.
the Bulletin in Hell's Kitchen, right? So there's all these layers. So without going too deep in the woods, because we'd get deep in the weeds with trying to explain all these characters to you. If you
Yeah.
haven't watched season one in particular, there
Yes.
are many characters. However, what's great about the show is that they flesh out those
Yes.
characters for
Every one of
you
them. Every one of them.
without it becoming overwhelming.
It's not beating your head over. It's developing these characters naturally, and it's engaging to learn their stories as we go
Right.
along, and to see their development. And their secrets, and they're not telling them yet, and that's okay because your characters are moving forward. And they don't have to
Yes.
go backwards just yet, right? So they don't have to tell the origin story because you're in the midst of a story and they're telling a good story.
So basically, again, without spoiling a whole bunch, but with also giving you enough, because the show's
Yeah.
been out for 10 freaking years,
Yeah.
is that they're able to weave all these characters,
Okay.
right?
Hold it. Give me a couple seconds. Keep going. I'm just gonna
Yeah,
step out
you're
for a
good.
second.
So they're able to weave all these characters together in season one. And so they introduce a lot. They throw a lot at you, right? But they do such a great job of not only weaving these characters into the story in season one, grounding all of these characters, giving them proper motivations, great writing, great exposition, I guess, if you will, although there's not a ton of it because they let the cinematics, they let the camera do the talking in the original Daredevil show. So culminating with basically Daredevil trying to get Fisk behind bars. Okay, protagonist, antagonist. It is what it is. Season two introduces the element of the Punisher. So now you have another person. Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? You have the public consumption, people trying to figure out, hey, this guy takes out bad guys. Well, I don't like the way he does it because he just blows them up, right? Those of you that know who the Punisher is, you get it. So then you introduce this third element into the story. Then you also have different gangs in Hell's Kitchen who are trying to take over by the void left by Wilson Fisk, who's gone to prison. Then you have Fisk, who's trying to work his way back into society. You have Daredevil, who's going through some changes, relationships, him and his law partner, maybe not getting along, maybe wanting to do something different. They have different ideas. You know, the character motivations are fantastic. The character work is amazing in this show, the original Netflix show. So season two, while not at the same height of season one, I think you also balance that out with action. Great action set pieces. One single shot camera scenes that follow down the hallway, that follow on the rooftop. Not a lot of edits, not a lot of cuts. So, and it's kind of funny.
I want to go back for just a second.
Okay.
Season 1, episode 2 has one of the greatest scenes that has ever been filmed ever in film, and people have tried to replicate it and they can't, and they've never been able to do it. There is a one take hallway fight scene that takes place in episode 2 that is unparalleled, and
Yes.
no one has ever been able to recreate it because it was one single take, one camera through the whole entire thing, all the way to where he pulls that kid out, right? And no
Right.
one has ever been able to replicate without doing multiple cuts in it. And they tried to do it in season 2. They tried to do it in season 3. They tried to do it in this Born Again series, and they can't replicate it. Also, the third episode has one of the most graphic, brutal scenes that you've seen on television in a long time. And that is when he takes the Russian and sticks his head in the car door and cuts his head off with a freaking car door.
Right.
Okay. He curb stomps him until his head comes off in a car door. and you've got Wesley over there just stepping out of the car so he doesn't get blood all over everything. Right. And you have this whole thing where, okay, in episode 2, you have introduced Daredevil. This is Daredevil. He is the on the ground beat 'em up guy. And in episode 3, you have established the Kingpin. I am going to decapitate the people who get in my way from my goals, because
Yes.
I'm a big dude and I'm going to take care of business. In season 2, you also had Elektra, didn't you? Elektra was in season 2, wasn't
Well,
she?
and well, I just gotten into season 2. Just got
Well,
into it because
it sounded like you're moving on to season 3. So,
well, no. I
okay.
just got into season 2 because
Okay.
kind of wrapping up season 1 just to
Yeah.
say, okay, Fisk goes to jail.
Yeah.
So now you have the different dynamics. You introduce the Punisher storyline. You have the different gangs trying to fill the void,
Yeah.
right? Then you introduce the Elektra character, right? Which
Elodie Young, who played Jinx in the G.I. Joe Retaliation movie,
Yep.
and she was
And-
awesome as
yeah.
Elektra. She was awesome.
Very good character, very good deep dive into what she's about, and so again, you have the different dynamics. You have everybody kind of is at a different place now. They're going in different directions, and so you have the law firm of Nelson Murdoch, and then they want Karen Page to be a part of it, but she's really not interested in being a lawyer. So as we move into season 2, her kind of mentor, Ben Urich, the newspaper, the reporter.
Hold on a second. Mendoza, you got to prove that to me, because everything I've seen, that was the only true one take fight scene that has ever been done in the history of film, because there was not a single cut in that entire thing from the beginning of the hallway to the end of the hallway when he's pulling the kid out was one take. And I've never seen anything to disprove that or show that there are any edits in it whatsoever, because I have not seen any edits. And some may seem like an edit, but it's not. It is a camera trick that they're doing based on the camera that was used.
And there also are, like, sometimes there are very, very sneaky, sly camera edits that we may not necessarily see. Now, look, I'm not, look, just to preface this, okay?
Yeah.
I have not researched. I didn't research the fight scene. I didn't research to find out if it was a true one take. I'm looking at that from the outside in, from what I've read and understood. But I have not researched it to say, hey, just so you know, was it an amazing scene? 100%.
yeah. It was an amazing scene. It was great, but also they have said it was a one take fight scene,
Okay.
and I have not seen an edit in there. There's one point where I was like, maybe that's an edit, but no, I looked at it again, and it's a camera zoom effect that they used as he was passing down the hallway. There's no
Oh,
edits in there.
okay. Okay. I got you. Um, I guess just, mainly what I wanted to kind of just discuss or talk about as far as season two is that for a lot of people, they may not have enjoyed season two the way that season one played off, but I think
Right.
it's because it takes on a little bit of a different tone. It has a different
Right.
pacing,
Yes.
right? It's a different pacing. But once you actually really get into it and you understand the electric
Yeah.
character, Stick, who was Matthew's mentor, who makes appearances in season one.
Sam
Okay,
Shepard, man, gotta love
yes,
that guy.
he is in season two and plays
Yeah.
another role in season two, and so he understands, and this is where I guess for some fans you have to kind of break this up because this is when Marvel was trying to do the different Jessica Jones and
Yeah.
Iron Fist. They greenlight the
Okay.
Punisher. They have like the Defenders. So all these different shows kind of start to come into play,
Not
and
yet.
that's where
Uh,
okay.
they've only done Jessica Jones,
Okay.
and they're talking about Luke Cage possibly coming in, and that's it. They haven't even talked Iron Fist yet. Iron Fist is a discussion point until
Okay.
the end of season, or season after season one of Jessica Jones, and maybe season one of Luke Cage. But
Okay.
they're talking about the expansion of the property for sure. And Jessica Jones season one I loved a lot. Luke Cage season one was it was half good, and then it kind of diminished from there.
I think ultimately, like as the show, continued on, then as other shows came into creation, there's a lot of fill in the blank parts,
Yeah.
especially when you get to season three,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Especially the beginning of season three. But nonetheless, so when you remove in season two the Wilson Fisk character as the big bad, you have to replace that big bad with something, right? So what do they do in season two to replace Wilson Fisk? I mean, do you recall like kind of what they do to keep you interested to figure out who is the main antagonist of season two? Like what is the. I mean, ultimately, it has to do really with the Punisher
Yeah.
that you find out is not just really an antagonist, right? He
Right.
he is a protagonist to an
Right.
extent, but he is the anti-hero, right? The classic anti-hero.
Yeah, that's
Someone
right.
you root for because you can get behind some of his morals, but not all of his morals.
Yeah.
But they introduced the Punisher character. I love John Bernthal in this role. I think he's
Yes.
fantastic. I think that it fills that void in season two.
Yep.
Yes, he ends up getting caught. Yes, he ends up going to prison.
Yep.
Is that for a very long time? Not at all. But he does meet someone while he's there, and that
Yep.
is the reintroduction of Wilson Fisk
Yep.
as the overarching antagonist of the show.
Yep.
So season two sees not Daredevil and Punisher teaming up like a lot of people probably wanted, but it does see the Punisher helping as well as the Hand and the storyline with Elektra. This
Yep.
and then the Hand, which is a mystical ninja group. They
Yep.
have a bunch of people that they have hooked up, and they are draining them of their blood
Well, and
constantly.
and we saw this in season one with Nobu, and in the comic books, the Punisher and Daredevil never saw eye to eye, just like Spider-Man and Punisher never saw eye to eye, but sometimes they were reluctant partners in situations.
Right. And so you have this mystical ninja organization. So in season two, we get a lot of ninja on Daredevil fights, right? We get a lot of ninja stars and swords and a lot of stuff like that. And so this is where one of my problems with season three comes into play because we see Daredevil taking on multiple ninjas. I mean multiple, getting beaten up, getting hurt, but coming through the other side. A character that was in season one because Wilson Fisk in season one surrounds himself with multiple heads of organizations like the Russians or the Chinese or whomever, right?
Yeah, and back in season one, uh, there was a thread that they put in there that never paid off, and it pissed me off to no end because Madame Gao was a part of the holy cities, right? She was part of Kunlun or the holy cities in Tibet, China, and all that stuff. And the symbol that they used on the heroine was the steel serpent, which was
Yes.
Davos, which was a major villain for Iron Fist, and they never paid that off because that was garbage in that show. But anyway,
So, but nonetheless, so in season two, as we introduce other gangs that are trying to fill the void after Fisk goes to prison, uh, you also get the reemergence of Nobu, who was a ninja character from season one, who evidently was supposedly burned up, but yet he comes back, right? So we find out that they're able to come back to life. They've been looking for or the black sky, which is the ultimate weapon, and we hear that multiple times throughout the season. Uh, that
say, I mean,
starts
it starts with the killing of a kid in a cargo container in season
in
one,
season one, yes.
and continues on because they hint at Elektra being a black sky also.
Right. And on top of that, you do start to get, and this is where I guess kind of what I brought up, earlier, is that that's where you start to get into the other shows, right? As this show started to conclude at season two, with Elektra and Daredevil ultimately teaming up
Yeah,
to fight against the Hand,
yeah,
and she's trying to realize her true purpose,
right.
and he's trying to help her realize her true purpose, as Matthew also is going through his own, you know, basically. I love the layers between him and his friends, right? Between
Yep,
Foggy and Karen, and letting them down, not being there.
yep,
Court appointments that are very important, trying to save
yep,
people, have people testify, and he's unable to attend because he's with Elektra doing her little shit because he's basically hooked on her,
yep,
you know. And even though he doesn't want to admit it, if she needs him and calls for him, he's gonna be there,
yep.
right? So you layer all that with the Punisher. There's multiple storylines, and yet still in season two, the producers and the writers are able to weave these stories very well. They do a wonderful job of weaving it all together.
Yeah,
Uh, Sometimes the less is more. We don't have much CGI. We
right.
get a lot of very practical fight scenes, a lot of
Absolutely.
practical effects, car wreck effects,
Yep,
explosions, fire, things of that nature. Very practical show.
yep.
Okay.
And this all comes down to what I've always said is the bigger the budget, the more flaws you're going to see because the smaller the budget, the more intense and precise you have to be.
Creativity.
The more focused you are, the more creative
Yes.
you are, and these guys didn't have much of a budget because these were some of the original Netflix originals,
Yes.
right? Actually, I think Daredevil was probably the original Netflix original. And because of how successful it was, it spawned this whole universe. By the time season two was done, they were hooked on, okay, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and where else were we going to go after that? Punisher, he was successful. Let's see if we can do something with that. Oh, wait, there's this guy Iron Fist. Maybe we can do something with that. Oh, the Defenders, and according to the comics, they didn't do the Defenders justice at all because Doctor Strange headed up the Defenders, and they were a totally different cast from these guys because essentially they took Heroes for Hire and Nightwing Investigations and put them together, and moved them forward. But anyway.
Yeah, it's so nonetheless, I mean my point is that, season 2, does it live up to season 1? I think it's the lesser of those two seasons, but I think it ultimately is very satisfying. And they bring everything around. They do a great job with the Punisher character. They do a great job of reintroducing Wilson Fisk. They do a great job of supplementing that void left by such a powerful character and a powerful actor in Vincent D'Onofrio, by supplementing that with various gangs, and then ultimately kind of adding in the issues with you know Matt and his friends, right? And
Yeah.
and Froggy and Karen, and
Not
so
Froggy, Foggy.
Froggy. I love Froggy. It's Froggy. What are you talking about? Sorry, I love it. Froggy. So I had a friend named Froggy. And so anytime it comes close to that, it's just like I go there. It's
There
like
you
he
go.
he actually owns
Awesome.
he owns a bar about 30 miles outside of town. But anyway,
That's cool.
and so yeah, nonetheless, all right. So my point being is that the character work is fantastic. So season 2, not as high as season 1, but it's right up there, and very good. Season 3 is odd because season 3 starts off with a plot line that is from another show,
Yeah.
and it's very confusing.
Yeah.
So if you're only watching, and here G.I. Jetman says, I think Defenders was really underrated. Disney Plus should reboot it. Thing of it is that the Defenders plot line in the final episode of the Defenders fighting Elektra, okay, and the building collapses in Midland, is that if you only have watched Daredevil, you are going to have no clue what the hell
Yeah.
is going on. And
Right.
they do not revisit it. They don't
Yeah.
revisit it. They don't give you a flashback. They don't tell
Nope.
you previously on.
Nope.
So if you come at it cold, if you watch Daredevil season 1, then 2, then 3, and you go right into it, you're going to be like, okay, what is happening? And for the first 3 or 4 episodes, I was like, okay, well, eventually they're going to do the whole 2 weeks ago, or they're
Yeah.
going to do the whole like 3 months ago. But
And
they
no.
do not do that. And it
Nope.
is quite confusing
Yeah.
for a few episodes because you really don't know what the hell is happening
Yeah.
and why Daredevil is missing and not
Mhm.
communicating, and he's recovering. But Matthew, the origin for season 3, right?
Yeah.
And that is
I mean, Daredevil Born Again is a comic book series where he's off the table and beat up and wounded, and finds his mom and finds his new purpose. Essentially, is the whole thing. It's an introspective story on Daredevil where he learns that his mom's alive and has been a nun, and she, you know, heals him and brings him back, and basically gives him a new purpose in what he's doing moving forward. And so to call this new series Born Again is kind of an affront to the story Born Again, because it was already told in season 3, which is very, very different from what we
right.
had in the first 2 seasons.
It's interesting. Season 3, I thought ultimately won me over. It's 13 episodes long. It takes a while to get there.
Yeah.
But my biggest issue with season 3 of the original Netflix series is the power levels are
Yeah.
all over the place. You just saw Daredevil fighting ninjas, multiple ninjas at the peak of powers. Now, season 3 deals with him not having them, right?
Yep.
And he has to learn to work his way back up to that again. But however, once he gets to that point, then this is where you get the Poindexter character, quote unquote, Bullseye, who is not named Bullseye by any means in the
Was he
show.
Bullseye or was he Jigsaw? I thought he was Jigsaw.
Who? Dex?
Oh, was it Dex? I thought they brought in Jigsaw in
Yeah,
season 3.
Dex to me is
Okay.
Bullseye. I don't know
What?
who else he
Okay.
could be.
Okay.
Because he's able to like throw stuff and shoot
Oh
stuff
yeah,
like
yeah.
he has,
Okay. But
So,
but no, 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 but actually Jigsaw is the kind of big boss of season 3.
uh, yeah. but ultimately, season 3 is really about Kingpin getting out of jail. He decides to start ratting on other crime families. He sucks the FBI into his plans, and the FBI end up starting to have to work for him because he ends up basically taking over. And and so you see the FBI, who initially with good intentions start out, but as they get wrapped up, Kingpin does what he does, and he starts coercing people into doing whatever he wants because he has dirt on them or their family or their kid, kid, whatever it is. So we get the an agent who starts out with money troubles. You get an agent who is mentally unstable,
Yeah,
and then
that's Jigsaw.
who is Dex? Is Jigsaw?
No, 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 that agent,
What agent?
the agent you're talking about.
Nadim?
Yes, Ray Nadim. That's
Is
Jigsaw.
Jigsaw?
That's Jigsaw. That's his name.
He died in the show.
Right. But that's Jigsaw.
Okay. Well, so all right, so great. It kind of is a bummer because he dies and I don't understand. Jigsaw was not okay, but anyway, whatever. Concerning Daredevil, all right, season 3,
He didn't really die.
fantastic. That makes it even more fun because he's laying with a bullet to his head in his pool that he was digging up
Well,
for
I
his
mean,
kid.
yeah, yeah. Well, exactly. But do you know Jigsaw? Jigsaw's got scars all over his face where he stapled himself back together. That's why he's called Jigsaw, because
I
he
I
put
I
himself back together after
I
dying so many times.
yes. All right. Fantastic. So, but as far as Daredevil season 3, it's basically Fisk getting out of prison. He's trying to reunite with his girlfriend all this time. They finally reunite, but ultimately it's a matter of the FBI kind of turning bad, and then Daredevil has to get his powers back again and really like figure out his purpose. He wants to kill, but he knows that killing is a line he would never cross. But if he crosses that line, he'll never come back from it. Right? You have Bullseye, who the character is introduced, who ends up posing as Daredevil. Right? So it's the born again comic, right? I mean, for the
Yep.
most part,
Yep.
and I thought they did a good job with it. All right. Is it as good as season 1? No. Is it as good as season 2? I think ultimately they're able to turn the corner in season 3 and really make it a great season.
Yeah.
I was a little worried a quarter of the way through, but to me, it changed my mind. And as I kept watching, I actually really enjoyed season 3.
Yeah.
So that brings us kind of to where we're at because this show is 10 years later, but is it a continuation of season 3? Is this
No.
we left off at this point and we need to explain some things? Um, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either.
And I have some problems right off the bat.
Yep.
So I'm going to ask you first. What what issues did you have with this first episode of Daredevil Born Again, which is now being made by Disney Plus and not people at Netflix?
Um, it doesn't really take into account season 1, 2, and 3 of Daredevil that we know. Um, it is boring as fuck, and really is a huge disappointment in terms of character development and the two plot points. I think there are two plot points that take place here that are relevant moving forward. Could have been told in a much more compelling way, and one of them, the fact that they did this in the first episode, in the first 7 minutes, the first 3 minutes of the show, whatever, and in the beginning of the show, sets the tone for the fact that this is not the Daredevil I want to watch.
It okay. I'm with you. We watched it. The first season of Daredevil very compelling.
Every episode.
Moment to moment,
Yeah.
the dialogue, right? The moment to moment action or non action.
Yeah.
Uh, even in season two, season three, the tone. There's CGI that does not land in this episode. It looks
This is
goofy.
terrible. It's
It
terrible.
doesn't need to be there. It is and War Chest here says I agree the first two episodes are trash. So we have not seen episode two.
Yeah.
We did watch episode one together. We watched it before we came on. And I think we had the same comments. The CGI was goofy. It's
Yeah.
not needed. We didn't need it in the original series. We don't need it here. There's a lot of exposition. There's a lot of pointless dialogue. There's a lot of boring dialogue.
Yeah.
It is not compelling at all.
Nope.
And honestly, the feeling I had of watching this episode as opposed to the feeling I had watching season one, episode one, or season two, episode one, or even season three, episode one, where I had
Yeah.
no idea what the fuck was going on,
Right.
is so different. I was thoroughly unimpressed and thoroughly bored. And that's the worst part, Matthew.
Yeah.
Being bored. Uh, the first 7 or 8 minutes of this episode one, yeah, sure. You got me on some of it.
No.
But again, like
No.
ultimately, some of the decisions that were made with the characters, certain characters that were injured, there are CGI moments that just look out of place. Some of the fighting choreography, and they even
Oh,
went
it's
back and
bad.
got the fighting choreographer from season one.
Yeah. And
Season one and two. They
Right.
brought him back, and yet it's
He-
not landing for me right
No,
now.
it's
I'm
not.
I'm
I
not
mean,
happy. I don't
it-
know. This is weird.
they broke some major physics things in that first episode. You heard me say it when we were watching it, and I'm like, that physically can't happen. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And they did it to put forth the story, but the story doesn't make any sense. The context, and if you just think about it for 2 seconds about what's going on in that fight scene, it doesn't make any sense. And it is no hallway fight scene. It is pretty
Well, that's for
terrible.
sure.
It's pretty terrible if you think about it. And so they're trying to put forth this action, but they're doing more shaky cam. They're cutting away and they're doing lots of edits, and it doesn't look good. And you can see the 10 plus years of age on some of these actors, and it's like, wait a minute, this isn't a continuation of what
I,
came before.
I'm okay. I'm okay with the age part. I'm okay
Oh,
with it being,
yeah,
let's say, if it's 10 years later and this is a continuation, if we're
yeah,
going to go that route, then I'm okay with that.
yeah.
However,
But in that 10 years, the Hawkeye series and Echo have taken place,
correct.
and Wilson Fisk should be dead because he was shot in the freaking face.
And She-Hulk.
And She-Hulk, you're right, and She-Hulk took place, and so all of those demean Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk, so that they are irrelevant to the story, and they should be irrelevant to the story, even though they're the main characters, because those stories destroyed those characters.
It's a
I
Star Wars
forgot about
thing.
She-Hulk.
I've got a bad feeling about this.
Yeah.
I do. I hate to
yeah.
say it, but I do.
Yeah.
I've got a bad feeling about this.
I mean, the first episode is so boring.
Oh my God.
I cannot imagine people sticking with it and following through to the second episode. So you watch the first 3 episodes. Okay, maybe there's something there. We haven't watched those yet. So if you're willing to grind through it, okay. The average normie person who's out there is going to watch that first episode and forget about the show. they're going to say, oh, whatever, I'm going to go watch 1923 because that's compelling in the first 2 episodes. Or I'm going to continue to watch Reacher because that's freaking cool. And I like the stories that they're going with there because there's better shit on TV because these writers are fucking garbage. They didn't bring back Christos Gage. They didn't bring back Jeff Johns because Jeff Johns and Kevin Feige fucking hate each other. Okay? Because one is a comic book guy and one is not a comic book guy. And the guy running the studio is not a comic book guy. No matter
Right.
what you've been told, he is not a comic book guy. He loves Star Wars, the movies, and that's it. He kind of occasionally touched on the comic books for whatever reason, but he never engaged in the comic books. He just did things because they made money.
So look, I'm not going to let's say overreact. I'm going to watch the next episode tonight when you and I get off. I'm going to give it a benefit of the doubt because I enjoyed what I saw previously so much that it has convinced me to give it the benefit of the doubt. There are people that I do trust who have said, hey, just if you can get through this, then you're going to maybe get what you want. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. So I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. I'm not going to overreact off of one episode, but I will say, folks, look, it's Netflix, which I'm not saying is the best of the best by all means. And their writers and the teams they bring in and the way they do things, whatever. But it is Netflix or another company, and it is Disney. So we have to keep that into consideration. Now, you'll hear all about, it's dark. And, for Disney, that's crazy. Someone got shot and there's blood. So, I get that. That's fine.
Yeah.
But again, it really does come down to who are you bringing in to write?
Yes.
How is this shot? Yes. How is your editing? How is your cinematography? Right?
It's terrible.
There's a lot to it. And we don't need to see Daredevil with that weird ass claymation CGI shit where the characters do the whole wee and and it just looks so weird. We didn't get that in the first 3 seasons. We don't need it here. He
looks like a bad 2002 Spider-Man bending out backwards. Right. And the cinematography is terrible. The framing of shots.
Okay, hang on.
Terrible.
Hang on. Todd C's in the house. What's up, Todd C? I'm not saying it sucks by any means.
No, I'm not saying it sucks.
And Mendoza.
It sounds like a slow burn. It's going to be a slow burn.
But here's the thing.
When season 1 and 2 and 3 of the previous show that we've already watched were so engaging from the very beginning.
So 3-star. 3-star. I want you to go back. Because you say we just like shitting on anything Marvel, okay? Well, I didn't like shitting on Marvel from 2008 to 2019. Yeah. I thought all of it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Almost all of it. I even like Age of Ultron, and I'm in the fucking minority.
Yeah.
You are. I am. So I will say this: it's not about shitting on anything Marvel. I don't think this episode was good. I'm not saying the show isn't good. I don't think this episode. I want you to go back and I want you to watch episode 1 from 2015.
Yep.
Okay. I want you to watch episode 1 from 2016. All right, season 2, and then I want you to watch episode 1 from this.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm going to say episode 1 of season 3 is really difficult because if you don't know what's going on with the defenders and all
you're lost.
You're lost. So I'm going to discount that.
But I want you to tell me a scene where you don't know any of the characters besides the main 3. There's all these people that they're trying to develop that you have no idea who they are.
But all I'm trying to say is I want you're correct about that. But I just want you to watch episode 1 from season 1, episode 1 from season 2.
Yeah.
And episode 1 from this show. And I want you to tell me, it's not about laying groundwork.
Yeah.
And pacing. Like, I want you to tell me, is it compelling? Does it grab you the same way? Are you engaged in it the same way? And I will say no.
Yeah.
And I watched it with 2 people who were extremely wanting it to be fantastic just like I was. I want it to be good. I don't want it to be bad. I don't want to
Right.
shit on it. I want it to be good. I want it to be as good as what I just finished watching. I stayed up until fucking 5 in the morning last night,
Yeah.
finishing season 3. Okay, getting
Yeah.
4 hours of sleep before work because that's how hooked I was wanting to finish season 3 from several years ago.
Yeah.
And base that or judging just episode 1, watching it with two people who love that original series and the character, all of us would agree this episode was just not like it was weird. It
Yeah.
just did not
It
grab the way those other ones do. I'm
no,
willing to give it a
it
chance. Of
doesn't.
course I
And
am.
and you asked, is it as dark and gritty? No, it's not, because Matt Murdock has Wilson Fisk's old apartment. Okay. I mean, it looks like that. His apartment has changed from where he was in the first 3 seasons to Wilson Fisk's apartment from where he was in season 1.
Yeah, that was strange. Like all of a sudden he's like, you remember when Foggy got the he was moving up in the world,
Yeah.
right? And he got the new job with Marcy's firm, right? And he's working with them, and he's living kind of large, right? He's cut his hair, he's got short hair. It's like it was so it was so a juxtaposition from what Matt Murdock, the way he lived, right?
Yeah.
And the dim apartment, and that's just his life, right?
Yeah.
I know things change, that's fine.
Yeah.
But it was odd. The characters they introduce in episode 1 that literally are killed off, like just,
Not all of them.
no, not all of
But
them.
most of them.
But just it's like you're sitting there and it's like they're giving dialogue and it just it's just kind of like okay, yeah, okay. I for some reason it's just not as engaging, and
Yeah,
and I think that's one of those things that it either grabs you or it doesn't.
Yeah.
And in those first couple seasons for me, even season 3, as it got
Yeah.
going, it grabs you and it pulls you in because you have
Yep.
you have no opportunity other than to do that.
I mean, I just jump onto it. The pacing, the writing, the framing, the cinematography, the acting, everything in season 1 was pretty damn close to perfect. Season 2 was pretty damn good.
That's
Season
good.
3, I enjoyed a hell of a lot. Okay, there were
Yeah.
problems as they went along, but that first season was so tight and so perfect. And then if you have just recently watched that and then you watch this, you're gonna go yawn. Okay, you're gonna be stretching your neck and saying, okay, let's get on with it. Several times in this first episode. Is it building up? Is it going to lead to something? I don't know. We're going to find out.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and like I said, we've heard from reputable sources that by episode 3, it starts kicking off. Okay.
Yes.
So it lights the fire in episode 3. Okay. Here's my problem. Why doesn't it light the fire in episode 1?
Because the other seasons did, like
Yes.
there was compelling
Yes.
like writing that grabbed you. You didn't have to build up, right? It wasn't a
Yeah.
slow burn. There is great writing and
Yep.
and action. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Why do we need to build up? Do
Yeah.
we need to build up? Right? We're
Right.
really not even. It's interesting because all of the exposition that we're kind of given in this episode, we also aren't given any history lessons. We're not given any kind of current. Where are they now?
Yep.
We really have no
Now,
frame of reference for time period. We
Right.
really don't get any of that at
I
all.
don't know how much of you guys remember, but in season 1, they made reference to the event, right?
Yes.
They never specified what the event was, but they knew that it destroyed a lot of the city. It damaged a lot of the city.
You see
so-
newspapers hanging on the wall, right?
and-
that
and-
have a headline, stuff like
and
that.
They make passing references to people with superhuman abilities and X, Y, and Z because the first Avengers movie had happened at this point.
Yes.
Right. And so they're making reference to it, but they couldn't directly address it because Feige hated Jeff Johns and didn't want this other thing happening at all. And so they fought each other on it. And he made this thing that was so incredible that they have to now include it into the ongoing universe. But at the same time, Jeff Jones did everything he could to relate to the things that were going on in the MCU as subtly as he could. And that made a huge difference to a lot of people who were paying attention, because that's how intelligent and subtle the writing was in the first 3 seasons.
So there, a couple questions really quickly. Mendoza says, "How is Cox as Daredevil in this new season?" I mean,
He's fine.
it's too early to tell. You
Yeah.
know, he is what he is. He's got this nailed down. He
Yeah.
knows what to do, right?
Yep.
It's some of the other characters that maybe at this point are not quite. You're just trying to
Now, did you
get
see
it.
the Vincent D'Onofrio interview about coming back to play Kingpin?
Maybe. I've
So
got some
so
of them saved. I've
yeah,
got
so
some YouTube
so
videos I've looked up.
so he talked about, hey, this is, I'm bringing back the character. Like
Yeah,
clearly he was dissing on Hawkeye and Echo and saying, I finally get to bring back this character in a very subtle Hollywood way. He was doing this, and
sure.
if you look closely at the language he used, he's like, I'm finally get to being Kingpin again. I'm getting to play this character again. And in this first episode, I don't see it. I see the man who was shot in the face by Echo and tried to mentor Echo, and then was berated as the ignorant white man in the Echo series. Okay, that's the
By all
Kingpin
the
I'm still seeing here.
right.
Right, and things happen in this first episode that set the stage for everything moving forward. And I get it, we're going to see a lot of these dynamics.
Yeah.
And I told Pop and War Chest my theory about what's going to happen in this episode, and you can relate it directly to the comic books, kind of thing, right? Because it wasn't a great story, but it happened in the comic books. And so I think they're going to do something like that, which has nothing to do with Born Again.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Obviously, War Chest was saying, "Hey, where's the double D on the costume?" That is interesting, and he does have a new costume, but yeah, there's no DD. It's
yeah,
kind of interesting that that's not on there. 3 Star says it is dark and gritty and violent, so they nailed that part. The lighting is perfect. Um, yeah, I mean, it is. That fight scene at the beginning, I mean, that's about all we get. I mean, we don't really get much after that, if I recall. It's mainly just chatting after that, but that's okay. I'm okay with chatting. I'm okay with, like,
no, I'm okay with
dialogue in
it. But
particular.
I mean, it goes down to
I
those
like that.
conversations in hallways and food. I mean, that's what the latter half of the episode is. And that, I have a lot of problems with that whole fight scene, with the physics
Yeah.
and where it was before the fight started and where it was through the fight, and how it doesn't make any sense. But
Yeah,
that's me.
and Mendoza, I guess my thing is, as far as a power level upgrade, not in this episode,
No, not so much.
but in season 3, the
Yeah.
reason I mentioned that there's like power level weird things going on, because he is tussling with someone who's an FBI agent. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, you could have all the skills in the world. You could throw a baseball and bounce it off of a flagpole and kill your coach at first base, but like being able to fling something without looking behind your head and hitting someone from 40 yards away is a very strange power when you're not powered. And I get it, it's the character, whatever. But Daredevil in season 2 went from fighting multiple ninjas and taking on dozens of ninjas and like perfecting his craft, to all of a sudden being beat the fuck up by FBI agent or like other people that maybe, you're talking about mystical ninjas who can slow their heartbeat, and you have to listen to their breath when they exhale because they've learned how to slow their heartbeat and not unsheathe their weapons. And yet you've got a guy who's throwing pots and pans around, and it's like, oh shit, I can't hang with this guy. So the power levels got real weird in season 3 for me. Doesn't mean it wasn't still good, but I just remember watching some of the fight scenes going, okay, what is happening here? Because he
Yeah.
literally was fighting dozens of ninjas who can't even, they can slow their heartbeat as they're literally fighting in real time, and he can't hear their heartbeat and hear them. but yet here's a guy just throwing shit at him, and it's like, oh my God, I'm getting beat up by this guy who's fighting me hand to hand combat. I just thought it was really weird. In season three, I thought that was a very weird dynamic that made it, that diminished season three for me. So I was fucking weird.
Mendoza, that was season one. That was him developing his skill and his power
Yes,
in
yes,
season one.
yes.
That has nothing to do with what happened in season two when he was fighting mystical fucking ninjas.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Just like Pop laid out. He laid it all out in front of you right there and said that was season two, not season one. Season one was a development arc as he's going up and developing who he is, and then he gets his armor, his suit. There was Melvin Potter's suit,
Yeah,
right?
Melvin. Yeah,
And
yep, yep.
and then he goes and does that. And in season two, he defeats fucking mystical ninjas. And then in season three, he goes backwards again. And
Yeah,
so
it was just it was odd. It was
there's an
odd.
oddness thing
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Even yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it was just weird because it kind of reset the power dynamics, regardless of whether he had had to recover for because there is a level in season three of him having to recover from his injuries. He
Yeah.
can't really hear, right? He's falling down. He's got his nurse, his nun, to nurse him back to health. Which ultimately, if you know the comics, then you understand who the nun is
Right.
in relation to him. Relation being a key word, and then and so there is that dynamic of him having to learn to walk again, so to speak.
Yeah.
However, by the time you get into it, and they kind of get to it quickly, it's like one episode he's like still kind of, and then all of a sudden the next episode it's like he's back in the middle of it. But they don't really do a great job after several episodes of expressing he's still kind of not with it.
Yeah.
You're having trouble with an FBI agent who
Yeah.
was never formally trained. He was in the
Yeah.
military, but
Yeah.
it's not like this is a mystical ninja. So it was just weird. That's all I'm saying. But as far as this season, if this is not a continuation, Matthew,
It's
if
not.
this is just its own thing,
Yeah.
then they do a poor job of
Yep.
giving us time, place, reasons, and and there's a lot of exposition, but none of that exposition is important.
No, it's not.
None of it.
None of it. Mendoza, a Wolfram and Hart legal drama series, I think would be awesome. And you bring back Boreanaz and you do that whole thing. I love Angel. I mean, Angel, I thought was a pretty darn good show. But yeah.
That's wild. That's pretty cool. So look, I mean, not gonna sit here. I'd say we could wait till next week to really talk spoilers. I don't want to just bam anybody out.
Right.
Just want to give an overview of this episode, and then next week, if you guys, I'm sure, look, if you're interested in this show, you're gonna watch it between
Yep.
now and next week, right?
And if you disagree with us, please come tell us.
Yeah,
Tell us
absolutely.
what you loved about it.
Absolutely.
And I'm all for it. And I understand if people love the slow burn, right? But this is such a slow burn. I was yawning. I was trying to play with my action figures. I mean, it was just too slow for me.
It definitely,
and
yeah.
I like a good story buildup. I do.
Right. I mean, look, Andor is probably my favorite Disney Star Wars thing that they've done. And you want to talk about a slow burn?
Yeah.
That's a slow burn.
Yep.
It also has some scenes in it that are weird and don't quite make sense. They have plot lines that they just completely drop.
Yeah.
And they disappear and never to be heard. So I get it, right?
Yeah.
Like, I like some stuff too. But I'm just saying from the first episode of what we previously been given, this definitely did not grab a hold of me and pull me in the way that those previous ones did. That's all I'm saying.
Mendoza, I'm with you, and
Yeah.
and that's why I'm all for giving it 3 episodes. I agree with that. At the same time, I'm going to tell you that this first episode is tough. And the first episode of season 1, season 2, and season 3 of the original Netflix series is not tough.
I agree with you. It's yeah. There's no I need to give it 3 episodes. It's like
Yeah.
first episode and you're like, oh, I'm all in.
Yep.
give me more of this. It didn't take 3 episodes.
Right.
So, but I'm the same way. I'm like, give me 3 episodes, give me a few episodes to get
Like with the
into it.
Acolyte, I gave it 3 episodes and I couldn't
Oh
take it.
boy, yeah, I gave it more than that, and
I
unfortunately,
know
I took it.
you did.
I took it in a place that I'd rather not ever mention on camera. How about that? Holy shit. But anyway, so look, next week we'll talk spoilers beforehand.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're going to talk episode 2 because it is out tonight.
Yep.
So for those of you that want to watch it, go watch episode 1 and 2 right now.
Yep.
Tomorrow, you've got 6 days, 7 days almost fully to check it out before we spoil episode 1 and 2.
Yep.
And then we'll talk 3 and 4 after that. But that's about all I got, Matthew. I know it's late. I need to get
Yeah.
you out of here because you've got work early in the morning. I
Oh
actually
yeah.
am lucky. I have a day off tomorrow. I do have a stream with 3 Star Draw tomorrow night.
Oh nice.
We're going to go over the GI Joe pre-orders, obviously, and some of the news that came out. There's a video that came out today about the Trench Viper. Someone already has, and that's quite interesting. So
Cool.
we're gonna go over that tomorrow night and talk about Hasbro. Actually, Hasbro sent out their quarter 4 plan from last year and moving forward 2025, and we're gonna go over that. Sometimes it's good
Nice.
to figure out what are these companies doing that we love, and maybe the reason why we're having issues getting the products that we've ordered and that we want. So
Yep.
that's what we're going to do tomorrow night on his channel, 3 Star Draw, and that's going to be at 9 p.m. Eastern, man.
All right.
Other than yeah,
I just want to say 1923, I've enjoyed it so far. Reacher has been great so far. We're continuing to watch those as we can. I'm really engaged in this 1923 story. Reacher is good. I enjoy it. The last episode that we watched was the flashback episode, and what it provides context, but it's still good. So those are worth watching. Definitely more engaging than that first episode of Daredevil, but
damn. Look, I hope it gets better.
yeah, me too.
Yep. But to remind you guys, Friday night at 10:30 Eastern, I'm gonna have a Punk with Toys on just to hang out, chat, and just find out some more information about that dude, man. I got some fun stuff planned, got some fun questions, and we'll hang out and chat. That's for sure. There it is. Love it. But yeah, anyway, so that's all we got, man. Really appreciate you guys coming in. Love you in the chat, and by all means, if you like what we say, awesome. If you don't like what we say, that's cool too. It's all about the feedback, and we can all kind of watch it together and figure it out. But we'll be back next Tuesday at 10 Eastern. And until then, it's Matthew Matson. I'm Pop Blender. Go check him out at Mamu's Action Figure blog on Instagram and all of his fantastic photos. We'll see you guys next week, man. Have a good night. Love you, baby.